What happens when the world's most powerless boy becomes its mightiest god? When Izuku Midoriya died saving his bully, a 10,000-year-old wizard made him Earth's champion of magic. Now, with the power of 6 ancient gods flowing through him, he doesn't just fight villains, he dominates them. This is his story.
Welcome, Legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The bottle hit the pavement with a wet slap that should have been louder. Izuku Midoriya heard it from half a block away, his ears still ringing from All Might's booming laughter as the #1 hero bounded across Musutafu's skyline. The notebook, number 13 in his collection, was clutched against his chest like a shield, pages still fluttering from where All Might had signed it with that brilliant gap-toothed grin. You can become a hero, even without a quirk. The words burned in Izuku's mind, a bonfire of hope in the darkness that had been his reality for 11 years. No quirk, extra toe joint, useless. Deku, then he saw the manhole-covered twitch. Green sludge oozed between the metal grating, pooling like sentient sewage before rising into a vaguely humanoid shape. Yellow eyes materialized in the muck. Scanning the street with predatory hunger, Izuku's blood turned to ice. The sludge villain, the one All Might had captured, the one that had been in that bottle. Finally, the villain gurgled, voice like drowning, "Freedom tastes like meat." The creature flowed down the alley, searching for a host, and Izuku should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around, to get help, to let the heroes handle it. But his feet were rooted to the concrete, watching the monster slither toward the shopping district where hundreds of people walked, oblivious to the danger oozing toward them. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, dialed emergency services, reported the villain's location. The operator told him to stay back, that heroes were en route. Izuku pressed himself against the wall and watched the villain disappear around the corner. He counted to 10. Then he followed. Not because he was brave. Not because he thought he could fight, but because someone needed to keep eyes on the villain until the pros arrived. Because someone needed to make sure civilians got clear. Because that's what heroes did, even the quirkless ones who would never wear a costume. The shopping district was chaos incarnate. Flames licked at storefronts, fed by ruptured gas lines, and the explosive quirk of whoever the sludge villain had consumed. Civilians ran screaming in every direction while heroes formed a perimeter, shouting orders at each other. Mountain Lady stood at her full size, blocking escape routes. Kamui Woods had his branches extended, but wasn't moving in. Death Arms was pulling people back behind the barricades. None of them were attacking. Izuku pushed through the crowd, notebook forgotten, eyes locked on the center of the destruction, where a figure thrashed inside a writhing mass of green sludge. The victim was being suffocated, drowning in living muck, while heroes stood around discussing strategy and property damage and civilian safety. We need someone who can handle this without causing more collateral. Where's Backdraft? We need water suppression. The kid's quirk is too volatile. If we attack, he might detonate. The victim's hand broke through the sludge, clawing at empty air, palm crackling with small, desperate explosions. Izuku's world tilted. He knew those hands. Knew those explosions, had seen them up close more times than he could count, usually before they detonated in his face. Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo was dying, and the heroes were doing nothing. Izuku's legs moved before his brain caught up. He ducked under Mountain Lady's arm, dodged past Death Arm's grasping hand, and sprinted into the fire with nothing but his backpack and a desperate, screaming need to save someone who had made his life hell for years. Kid, get back! Civilian in the danger zone! Someone stop that idiot! The heat hit him like a wall. Smoke filled his lungs. The sludge villain's eyes swiveled toward him, and in those yellow depths, Izuku saw his death. Another one? Today's my lucky day. The sludge lunged. Izuku dropped to his knees beside Bakugo's half-submerged form and clawed at the muck with his bare hands. It was like trying to grab water, thick and viscous and alive, reforming instantly around his fingers. Bakugo's eyes met his, wide, terrified, furious, even in the face of death. "Get out of here, you quirkless." "Shut up," Izuku screamed, digging harder. His fingernails tore, blood mixed with sludge. "Just shut up and let me save you." He grabbed Bakugo's hand, the one still crackling with residual explosions, and pulled with every ounce of strength his scrawny body possessed. The sludge villain laughed, a gurgling sound like a drain backing up. Touching, 2 for the price of 1. Tentacles of muck wrapped around Izuku's waist, his chest, his throat. Suffocating pressure, drowning on dry land. But he didn't let go of Bakugo's hand. Couldn't let go. If he was going to die here, at least he'd die trying to save someone. At least he'd die like a hero. "You know what's funny about explosion quirks?" The villain whispered in his ear, voice vibrating through the sludge. "They need oxygen, but I control oxygen now. I control everything." And you know what else is funny? The pressure around Izuku's chest increased, crushing, compressing his ribs inward. I can make him explode whenever I want. Bakugo's palm ignited against Izuku's grip. The world turned white. The explosion detonated point blank, fueled by the sludge villain's sadistic glee and Bakugo's involuntary quirk activation. The force sent shrapnel, concrete, glass, metal, tearing through Izuku's body like he was made of paper. He felt his ribs shatter, felt something hot and vital rupture inside his chest, felt himself flying backward through air that was suddenly too thick to breathe. He hit the pavement hard enough to bounce. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading in a dark circle that reflected the flames still burning around the battle. His vision blurred, sounds became muffled, distant. He could see heroes rushing toward him now that it was too late, could see All Might landing, eyes wide with horror behind his mask. Izuku tried to speak, tried to tell them to save Bakugo first, but blood filled his mouth and the darkness was already pulling him down into depths colder than any sludge. His last thought wasn't fear, it was regret. I wanted to save people, then nothing, then light. Izuku gasped and sat up, hands clutching at his chest, searching for the wound that should have killed him. But his skin was whole, his ribs intact, he was alive. But everything was wrong. He wasn't in Musutafu anymore. The space around him was vast and impossible, like standing inside a cathedral carved from raw magic. Stone pillars stretched up into darkness, covered in glowing runes that shifted and changed as he watched. The floor beneath him was solid but translucent, revealing galaxies and nebulae swirling in infinite depths below. At the center of the chamber sat 7 stone thrones arranged in a circle, each one emanating a different colored aura. And standing before him was a man who looked older than time itself. He was impossibly tall, draped in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight and shadow. A long white beard flowed down to his waist, and his eyes, ancient, tired but still burning with power, fixed on Izuku with an intensity that made the boy want to shrink into himself. "Am I dead?" Izuku's voice echoed in the chamber, smaller than he'd ever heard it. "Yes," the old man said, voice like distant thunder. "And no, that's not helpful." A slight smile crossed the ancient face. "You are between, suspended in the moment of your death. Your body lies broken on the street while your soul stands here in the Rock of Eternity, the nexus of all magic." Magic? Izuku's analytical mind kicked in despite the impossibility of the situation. Magic doesn't exist. Quirks are genetic mutations caused by quirks. The word dripped with disdain. Parlor tricks, genetic accidents given fancy names. You live in a world that forgot true power, that replaced wonder with science and called it evolution. The old man stepped forward, and Izuku noticed he leaned heavily on a gnarled wooden staff. "I am the wizard, the last of the Council of Eternity. For 10,000 years I have searched for a champion worthy of my power. Do you know how many I have tested?" Izuku shook his head. 17,432. The number hung in the air like an accusation. Warriors, kings, heroes and villains, those born with power and those who seized it. Not one possessed the purity of heart required to wield the powers of the 6 elders without corruption. "And you think I..." Izuku laughed, a broken sound. I'm nobody. I'm quirkless. I just died trying to save someone who hates me, and I couldn't even do that right. You died trying to save him anyway. The wizard's staff struck the floor, and the sound reverberated through infinity. That is why you are here. In my 10 millennia, I have witnessed countless acts of courage and countless acts of sacrifice. But rarely do I witness both from one so young, so powerless, so utterly aware of his own weakness, yet willing to face death regardless. The old man reached out, placing a weathered hand on Izuku's shoulder, and suddenly the boy could feel the weight of ages pressing down on him. The wizard was dying, fading. His power was immense, godlike, but it was also eating him alive, burning through him like a candle that had been lit for far, far too long. I am at my end, Izuku Midoriya. The powers I wield, the gifts of the Six Elders, cannot exist without a vessel. If I die, they die with me, and the world loses its last defense against the forces of chaos and darkness that lurk beyond the veil. I don't understand. What do you want from me? Everything. The wizard's grip tightened. I want your life, your future, your normal teenage existence, because if you accept my power, you will never be normal again. You will be the champion of magic, Earth's mightiest mortal, the bearer of the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. The names washed over Izuku like a tidal wave. He'd heard them before in history class, in mythology books, ancient heroes and gods whose stories had been reduced to bedtime tales and scholarly footnotes, but the wizard spoke them with reverence, with weight, as if they were more than stories. To wield these gifts, you need only speak my name, Shazam, the acronym of the Elders. Do so, and lightning will strike you, transforming you from boy to champion, mortal to demigod. You will possess power beyond any quirk, beyond any science, and with that power comes responsibility. To do what? To protect, to defend, to stand as the barrier between humanity and the darkness it cannot comprehend. The wizard's form began to flicker, translucent at the edges. I am fading faster now, you must choose. Accept my power and return to life as my champion, or refuse and pass on to whatever comes after. But know this, if you refuse, your friend dies. The sludge villain will consume him fully, and many more will fall before conventional heroes subdue the creature. Bakugo wasn't his friend, had never been his friend, had spent 11 years making sure Izuku knew exactly how worthless a quirkless kid was in a world of heroes, but Izuku had still run into the fire to save him. If I accept, Izuku said slowly, can I still be a hero? Can I still go to UA? Can I still save people? The wizard's smile was sad and knowing. You can be the greatest hero your world has ever seen, or you can become something else entirely. The power does not make the man, Izuku Midoriya. It merely reveals who he truly is. Izuku thought about his mother, probably getting the call right now that her son was dead. Thought about All Might's words, still fresh in his mind. Thought about all the heroes standing around watching Bakugo die because they were too worried about property damage and public safety to actually save anyone. Thought about what he could do if he had the power to actually make a difference. I accept. The wizard's entire being erupted in light. His form began to dissolve, breaking apart into streams of prismatic energy that swirled around Izuku like a hurricane. The 7 thrones behind him blazed to life, each one projecting a beam of colored light, red, blue, gold, white, green, purple, silver, that converged on the boy's body. Speak my name. The wizard's voice boomed, no longer old and tired, but powerful and eternal. Speak it and claim your destiny. Izuku opened his mouth and the word came out like a thunderclap. Shazam! The rock of eternity exploded in white light, and 15 seconds earlier in the real world, All Might landed next to Izuku's broken body with a boom that cracked the pavement. The symbol of peace, the #1 hero, the man who had faced down villains and disasters with a smile, fell to his knees beside a dead teenager and felt something inside him shatter. The boy's chest was caved in. Blood pooled beneath him. His eyes were open but glassy, staring at nothing. No, All Might whispered. No. You were supposed to run. You were supposed to be safe. Lady was pulling Bakugo free from the sludge villain, the creature distracted by its own gloating. Kamui Woods and Death Arms were coordinating an attack. The battle was being won, but the price was a dead kid who had only wanted to help. All Might had faced countless villains in his career, had saved millions, had smiled through pain and fear and exhaustion because that's what heroes did. But he couldn't smile now. Couldn't pretend that this was anything other than a catastrophic failure. He reached out to close the boy's eyes. The sky split open. Lightning, not yellow, not natural, but brilliant blue-white shot through with golden veins, crashed down from a cloudless sky and struck Izuku's corpse with enough force to vaporize concrete in a 10-foot radius. All Might was thrown backward, his super strength the only thing keeping him from being pulverized against a wall. The other heroes shouted in confusion. The sludge villain stopped mid-gloat to stare at the pillar of light now consuming the dead boy's body. Thunder shook the city. Magic rewrote reality, and Izuku Midoriya opened his eyes. Except they weren't his eyes anymore. They glowed with inner light, brilliant blue-white, the same color as the lightning that crackled around his transforming body. His chest knitted itself back together, bones fusing, organs regenerating, blood evaporating into mist. He stood up in one smooth motion, and as he rose, his body changed. He grew. 6 feet, 6'2", 6'4". Muscles packed onto his frame like clay being molded by divine hands, transforming him from a scrawny 14-year-old into a physical specimen that would make Greek statues weep with envy. His school uniform burned away, replaced by form-fitting white fabric that covered his torso and arms, trimmed in gold at the wrists and collar. A red cape materialized, flowing from his shoulders despite the absence of wind. Gold boots wrapped around his feet, and a lightning bolt insignia blazed across his chest in brilliant yellow. His hair remained green, but now seemed to crackle with residual energy. And when he turned to look at All Might, the symbol of peace saw a god wearing the face of a child. "Whoa," the boy said, voice deeper now, but still recognizably young. He looked down at his hands, massive, powerful hands that could crush steel, and flexed experimentally. This is incredible." The sludge villain recovered first. "What the hell are you supposed to be?" The boy's head snapped toward the villain with speed that left after images. His smile was bright and genuine and absolutely terrifying in its innocence. "I'm a hero." He moved. One moment he was standing next to All Might. The next, he was in front of the sludge villain, crossing 50 feet in a literal blur of motion that left a trail of displaced air in his wake. The speed of Mercury wasn't just superhuman velocity. It was the ability to move faster than thought, faster than reaction, fast enough that the world seemed to slow to a crawl around him. The sludge villain lashed out with a dozen tentacles, each one capable of crushing concrete. The boy caught them all with one hand, gripping the muck with fingers that radiated heat. "You hurt my friend," he said, voice still friendly but edged with something cold. "That was a mistake. Your friend, that kid wanted you dead." "I know, but I was trying to save him anyway. That's what heroes do." The sludge villain tried to pull back, tried to dissolve and escape, but the boy's grip was unyielding. The strength of Hercules wasn't just about lifting capacity, it was divine might, the power that had slain hydras and held up the sky. The villain might as well have been fighting gravity itself. "Let me show you something cool," the boy said, and his grin widened. "I can fly." He shot straight up into the air, dragging the sludge villain with him. Not jumping, flying, propelled by power that defied physics and quirk science alike. Up past the buildings, past the skyline, into open sky where the shocked heroes below became tiny figures on a game board. The villain screamed and thrashed, trying to escape, but the boy just laughed with pure childlike joy. "This is amazing! I'm flying! I'm actually flying!" Then his expression shifted, becoming serious. Solomon's wisdom flooded his mind. Ancient knowledge, battle strategies, the understanding that the sludge villain was most vulnerable when separated, that his liquid form was held together by a consciousness that needed to remain centralized. "Okay, playtime's over." He began to spin, slow at first, then faster, rotating his entire body while holding the villain at arm's length. Faster, faster. The speed of Mercury combined with the strength of Hercules, creating a centrifuge effect that generated forces no natural being could withstand. The sludge villain began to separate, liquid components being flung outward by sheer velocity, while the solid core, the consciousness, the actual villain, remained trapped in the boy's grip, 1 rotation per second, 5 rotations per second, 20. The sound barrier broke with a crack that echoed across Musutafu. Liquid sludge sprayed in all directions, rendered harmless and unconscious by the separation. The villain's core, a small, almost pathetic humanoid figure made of condensed muck, went limp in the boy's hand. He stopped spinning, hovering in midair 1,000 feet above the city, holding an unconscious villain by the scruff of its neck. "Ha!" he said, tilting his head. "That worked better than I thought it would." He descended slowly, giving the crowd below time to process what they'd just witnessed. News helicopters were already circling, cameras pointed at the caped figure dropping from the sky like a divine messenger. The heroes on the ground stood in various states of shock, weapons and quirks half-activated, unsure whether to treat this new arrival as friend or foe. The boy landed with barely a sound, his boots touching pavement as lightly as if he'd stepped down from a curb. He held out the unconscious sludge villain toward Mount Lady, who took it automatically, still staring. "Here you go," he said cheerfully. "One villain, wrapped and ready for arrest. Is Bakugo okay?" All Might found his voice first. "Who? What are you?" The boy blinked, and for a moment the overwhelming divine presence faded, replaced by nervous teenage awkwardness that was jarringly familiar. He rubbed the back of his neck with one massive hand. "Oh, right, sorry, this is kind of new for me." He cleared his throat and struck a pose that was probably meant to be heroic but came off as dorky. "I'm the champion of magic, Earth's mightiest mortal, wielder of the powers of the six elders." Silence. "Also, I'm Izuku Midoriya from earlier. You know, the kid who was just dead." More silence. Then Bakugo, sludge-free but covered in grime, stumbled forward and pointed a shaking finger at the transformed Izuku. "You. You were dead. I saw you die. And now you're... What the hell is this?" Izuku looked down at his new body, seeming to notice for the first time just how drastically he'd changed. "It's kind of a long story. There was this wizard, and he gave me his powers, and now I can do this." He jumped, soaring 50 feet straight up without effort, then landed with a boom that cracked the pavement in a spiderweb pattern. Several heroes jumped back. "And this..." He held out his hand, and electricity crackled between his fingers. Not the yellow sparks of a quirk, but blue-white magical lightning that smelled like ozone and ancient places. "And I'm really strong now. Watch!" He grabbed a nearby fire hydrant, still attached to the water main, and lifted it out of the ground like pulling a weed. Water sprayed everywhere, and Izuku laughed, genuinely delighted, before carefully putting it back and using his heat vision, which he apparently also had, to weld it back into place. "This is incredible! I have superpowers! Real superpowers! I can fly, and I'm strong, and I'm fast, and I have magic lightning and... Kid." All Might's voice cut through the excited rambling. "You need to calm down and explain what happened. Now." The command in the number one hero's voice seemed to ground Izuku. His shoulders straightened, his expression became more serious, and when he spoke again, it was with a gravity that didn't match his teenage enthusiasm. "I died," he said simply. "The explosion killed me. But before I could move on, I guess, I was chosen. The Wizard of the Rock of Eternity selected me as his champion and gave me his powers. The powers of the six elders, Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. When I say the magic word, I transform into this." He gestured at his godlike physique. "And when I say it again, I turn back." "What's the word?" Mount Lady asked, curiosity overcoming shock. "Shas!" Lightning struck again, brilliant and blinding, and when it faded, the 6'4" demigod was gone. In his place stood Izuku Midoriya, scrawny, green-haired, 14 years old, and completely naked except for his underwear. He finished in his normal voice, then looked down at himself and turned bright red. "Oh no, my clothes burned off. This is the worst. This is literally the worst thing that could happen." All Might, moving faster than most people could track, threw his jacket over the mortified teenager. "We need to get you somewhere private," the hero said quietly. "And you need to explain everything. But first..." He turned to address the crowd of heroes, civilians, and news cameras. His smile was back, wide and confident, the symbol of peace reasserting control over a situation that had spiraled into chaos. "Citizens, a new hero has emerged today, one who saved young Bakugo and defeated the sludge villain with incredible power. Let us give thanks for his bravery and..." His voice faded into the background as Izuku clutched All Might's jacket around himself and tried not to die of embarrassment. He just saved the day, demonstrated godlike power, and made his debut as a superhero, and he was doing it in his All Might-themed boxer shorts. Being a champion of magic was going to be complicated. The UA Faculty Lounge had seen its share of strange meetings over the years. Villain attacks, quirk accidents, students with problematic abilities. But even by UA standards, the scene 3 days after the sludge villain incident was unprecedented. Principal Nezu, a creature of indeterminate species with intelligence that bordered on precognition, sat at the head of the table, paws folded, black eyes gleaming with fascination. All Might occupied his deflated form in the chair to Nezu's right, looking older and more tired than usual. Recovery Girl perched in her medicinal chair, frowning. And standing at the far end of the room, looking deeply uncomfortable in a borrowed UA gym uniform, was Izuku Midoriya. Transform again, Nezu said pleasantly. I want to confirm the measurements. Izuku sighed. This is the 5th time. Humor me. Shazam! Lightning crashed through the reinforced roof. Nezu had specifically requested they meet in a chamber with a direct skylight, and teenager became Titan. Captain Deku, a name the internet had latched onto despite Izuku's protests, stood in his full glory, cape settling around his shoulders, lightning insignia glowing. Nezu produced a measuring tape that seemed absurdly small in comparison to the transformed hero. 6 feet, 4 inches. Confirmed. Weight? I don't know, Captain Deku admitted, stepping onto an industrial scale designed for cargo. The needle spun wildly, then settled. 340 pounds, but I can't adjust it. Adjust it? Yeah, I can make myself lighter or heavier. It's part of the flight thing. I can control my personal gravity or mass or something. Solomon's wisdom tells me how, but it's hard to explain in words. Recovery Girl leaned forward, her expression troubled. And you claim this isn't a quirk? It's not. It's magic. Completely different. Magic doesn't exist. I died and a wizard gave me superpowers. Captain Deku gestured at himself. I'm pretty sure magic exists. All Might cleared his throat. We had Eraserhead test his quirk on the boy yesterday. His erasure did nothing. Young Midoriya remained transformed, retained all his abilities. Whatever this power is, it operates outside the rules of quirk genetics. Which is impossible, Recovery Girl muttered. Which is our reality, Nezu corrected, his tone cheerful despite the existential implications. We live in a world where approximately 80% of the population possesses genetic mutations we call quirks. We've built our entire society around this framework. But what happens when something appears that exists outside that framework? Something that cannot be erased, cannot be copied, cannot be stolen. I become a massive target, Izuku said quietly, transforming back to his normal form with another lightning strike. He pulled on a shirt that hung loose on his skinny frame. I've been thinking about it. If word gets out that I have powers that can't be negated, every villain with ambition is going to want to test that. And every hero is going to wonder if I'm a threat. Are you? The question came from Eraserhead, who'd been lurking in the shadows so quietly that Izuku hadn't noticed him. The underground hero stepped forward, capture weapon already floating around his shoulders. A threat, I mean. You've got power that makes All Might look weak. You could level a city if you wanted to. So what's stopping you? Izuku met the hero's bloodshot glare without flinching. The same thing that made me run into that fire to save Bakugo. I want to save people, not hurt them. I want to be a hero. Pretty words from someone who could kill me before I finished blinking. But I won't, because I'm not a killer. Izuku's voice was steady, calm. The wizard chose me because I was pure of heart. This is because I was willing to sacrifice myself for someone who hated me. That doesn't change just because I'm powerful now. Eraserhead studied him for a long moment, then looked at Nezu. He believes what he's saying. Whether that makes him safe is another question. Indeed. Nezu hopped down from his chair and approached Izuku, barely reaching the boy's waist. Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting. Izuku Midoriya, you have applied to UA's hero course. Given your unique circumstances, the faculty has been debating whether to accept your application. Izuku's heart sank. You're going to reject me because I'm too powerful? Quite the opposite. We're going to accept you because you're too powerful to leave unsupervised. Nezu's smile was sharp. You represent an unknown variable in our society, a power source that operates outside established rules. You need training, guidance, mentorship, and UA is uniquely positioned to provide all three. So I'm in? Conditionally. You must pass the entrance exam like any other student. However, given that your current power level would allow you to obliterate the practical exam in seconds, we've created a modified test, one that evaluates your control, your judgment, and your understanding of heroics beyond raw power. All Might spoke up, his voice gentle. Young Midoriya, you have the potential to be the greatest hero the world has ever seen. But potential means nothing without wisdom, training, and heart. Will you accept UA's conditions? Izuku didn't hesitate. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Excellent. Nezu produced a tablet from seemingly nowhere and began typing. Your entrance exam is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. In the meantime, you'll undergo preliminary training with myself, All Might, and select faculty members. We need to understand your abilities, their limits, and how they interact with quirk-based society. There's one more thing, Recovery Girl said, her expression serious. Your mother. Does she know? Izuku's confident demeanor cracked. I told her I have a transformation quirk, that it activated late because of the stress of almost dying. She thinks it's a miracle. I couldn't tell her about the wizard or the magic or dying because she'd never believe me, and even if she did, it would destroy her. Lying to her is also destroying her, Recovery Girl pointed out. Every day you maintain this deception, you widen the gap between you. I know, but what am I supposed to say? Hey mom, I actually died, but a 10,000-year-old wizard brought me back as a demigod? She'd have me committed. Nezu made a thoughtful sound. Perhaps a partial truth would suffice. A quirk awakening triggered by extreme stress isn't unprecedented. Many late bloomers develop abilities in life or death situations. It's not the whole truth, but it's close enough to avoid unnecessary complications. That feels like lying. Welcome to heroics, Eraserhead said dryly. Secret identities, cover stories, and strategic omissions. If you're going to operate in this world, you need to learn when the truth helps and when it hurts. Izuku wanted to argue, but Solomon's wisdom whispered in the back of his mind, confirming what the heroes were saying. Sometimes truth was a weapon that caused more damage than lies. Sometimes protecting people meant protecting them from knowledge they couldn't handle. It was a bitter lesson for someone who'd always valued honesty. Okay, he said finally. I'll keep the story simple. Late blooming transformation. Quirk. Nothing about dying or wizards or magic. Good. Nezu hopped back to his chair. Now, let's discuss your hero name. The media has been calling you Captain Deku, which you seem to dislike. It's terrible. Deku is what Bakugo calls me when he's being mean. Then what would you prefer? Izuku thought about it. Thought about the lightning bolt on his chest, the powers flowing through him, the destiny he'd accepted. He needed something that honored the wizard's gift while still being his own. Shazam, he said. My hero name is Shazam. That's your transformation word, All Might pointed out. Exactly. It represents what I am, the acronym of the 6 elders. Every time someone says my name, they're speaking the source of my power. It feels right. Nezu's grin widened. Shazam it is. Though be prepared for significant confusion when you transform in public. I'll work it out. I'm sure you will. The principal shuffled his papers. You're dismissed. Training begins tomorrow at dawn. Don't be late and don't destroy any buildings. I'll try. As Izuku left the faculty lounge, transforming to fly home rather than take the train, All Might watched from the window with an expression of mixed pride and concern. That boy is going to change everything, he said quietly. Yes, Nezu agreed. The question is whether he'll change it for better or worse. You saw him run into that fire, saw him willing to die for someone who tormented him. That kind of heroism doesn't corrupt easily. No, but power does, and he has more power than anyone should possess. Nezu turned away from the window. We need to make sure he stays the boy who ran into the fire, not the god who emerged from it. In the sky above Musutafu, Izuku flew through clouds with his arms spread wide, laughing with pure joy. The sunset painted the world in gold and crimson, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged in it. He was going to be a hero, not despite being quirkless, but because he'd chosen to run into the fire anyway. The UA entrance exam was scheduled for a Saturday in late February, and Izuku arrived 3 hours early because his anxiety wouldn't let him sleep. He wore his transformation form, had learned to control the lightning strikes so they didn't destroy his surroundings, and drew stares from every student filtering onto campus. Most entrance exam candidates were 15 or 16, full of nervous energy and last-minute quirk practice. They sized each other up, formed temporary alliances, and tried to project confidence they didn't feel. Izuku stood 6'4" in his cape and drew attention like a magnet. "Is that a hero?" someone whispered. "No way. He's our age. Look at those muscles. What's his quirk?" A girl with brown hair and a determined expression approached him, unintimidated by his size. "Hi, I'm Ochako Uraraka. Are you taking the exam too?" Izuku nodded, grateful for someone treating him normally. "Yeah, I'm Izuku Midoriya. My hero name is Shazam." Shazam, like the word people say when they're excited? Kind of. It's also, "Attention examinees." President Mike's voice boomed across the assembly hall, magnified by speakers and enthusiasm. The voice hero stood at a podium, grinning behind his sunglasses, ready to explain the practical exam. "Welcome to UA. Today, you'll be proving your worth as future heroes. The practical exam consists of a mock battle in an urban environment. You'll face 3 types of villain robots." The presentation screen lit up, showing schematics of the robots. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, each progressively larger and more dangerous. Destroy robots, earn points. The top scorers get accepted. But remember, this isn't just about combat power. Heroes need judgment, tactics, and teamwork. A hand shot up from the crowd. Izuku recognized the student. Blue hair, glasses, rigid posture. The boy stood with military precision. "Excuse me, but your presentation shows 4 robots, not 3. Is this an error, or are you testing our attention to detail?" "Excellent question." President Mike's grin somehow widened. "The 4th robot is the 0-pointer, a massive obstacle worth no points. Avoid it and focus on the others." "Understood. Thank you for your clarification." The boy sat down, and Izuku felt Solomon's wisdom analyzing him. Intelligent, rule-oriented, likely from a hero family given his bearing and knowledge of exam structure. Potential ally or obstacle depending on circumstances. "Now, one more thing." President Mike pointed directly at Izuku. "This year, we have a special case. Examinee Midoriya will be taking a modified version of the exam due to his unique circumstances." Every eye in the hall swiveled to Izuku, who fought the urge to shrink into his seat. Being the center of attention in his transformed state was different than being noticed as quirkless Deku. This attention held weight, expectation. "Midoriya! Step forward!" Izuku stood, cape flowing behind him, and walked to the podium. President Mick gestured at the screen, which now showed a different setup. "Your exam happens in a separate location, no robots. Instead, you'll be tested on control, precision, and heroic judgment. Faculty members will observe and evaluate." "What do I have to do?" Izuku asked, voice carrying across the silent hall. "Save people." President Mike's enthusiasm never wavered. "We've set up a disaster scenario. Civilians trapped in collapsing buildings, fires, structural failures. Your job is to save as many as possible without causing additional damage. Think you can handle it?" Izuku's nervousness evaporated, replaced by determination. This wasn't about destroying robots or scoring points. This was about the one thing he'd always wanted to do: save people. "I can handle it." "Then let's go." The modified exam site was a full-scale disaster zone, constructed specifically for Izuku's test. Buildings leaned at dangerous angles, held up by failing supports. Fires burned in controlled patterns. Smoke filled the air, and scattered throughout the chaos were rescue dummies designed to simulate civilians, some trapped in rubble, some hanging from ledges, some actively falling. Faculty members watched from an observation tower. Nezu, All Might, Recovery Girl, Eraserhead, Cementos, and Ectoplasm. Each had clipboards and evaluation rubrics. "Begin." Nezu's voice crackled through the loudspeakers. Izuku didn't hesitate. He shot into the air, flying over the disaster zone, and Solomon's wisdom flooded his mind with a complete tactical analysis. 17 civilians in immediate danger, 32 trapped but stable. Building 3 had 40 seconds before total collapse. Fire in Building 5 spreading toward a gas main. Optimal rescue sequence required speed, strength, precision. He moved. The speed of Mercury carried him to the collapsing building in less than a second. 3 civilians on the 4th floor, trapped behind rubble. Izuku crashed through the wall. Hercules' strength turning concrete into powder and grabbed all 3 dummies in one arm. He flew them to safety, deposited them with rescue personnel, and returned before the building finished falling. Building 5, spreading fire. Izuku took a deep breath and blew, channeling power through his lungs. The stamina of Atlas allowed for sustained exertion beyond human limits, and his breath came out like a hurricane, snuffing flames and clearing smoke. He flew through the cleared zone, plucking civilians from windows and balconies. Moving so fast, he seemed to be in 3 places at once. A dummy fell from a 40-story building. Izuku caught it at terminal velocity, adjusting his own mass and velocity to match, decelerating smoothly to avoid whiplash injuries. He set the dummy down gently and returned to the sky. The observation tower was silent except for the scratching of pens on paper. "He's not even breathing hard," Eraserhead muttered. "Look at his routing," Nezu said, admiration clear in his voice. "Every movement is optimal. He's not wasting a single action. That's not instinct. That's the wisdom of Solomon giving him perfect tactical awareness." All Might watched his protege, unofficial but still, clear the disaster zone with methodical efficiency. No showboating, no unnecessary force, just smooth, professional heroics executed with godlike power. A building suddenly collapsed out of sequence. A deliberate surprise added by Cementos. 20 dummies inside, all about to be crushed. Izuku reacted instantly. He dove, hit the ground, and braced himself beneath the collapsing structure. The strength of Hercules plus the stamina of Atlas meant he could support weights that would crush mountains. He held the building up with both hands, muscles straining but holding, while simultaneously using super breath to clear an exit path. Then he threw the building, straight up. The entire structure launched into the sky like a rocket, and while it was airborne, while gravity briefly lost its hold, Izuku blurred through the interior at super speed, plucking out every dummy in the span of 3 seconds. He set them down safely and then flew up to catch the falling building, lowering it gently to an empty lot. "Show off," Eraserhead said, but he was smiling. Izuku finished the exam in 8 minutes. 17 immediate rescues, 32 trapped civilians freed, 0 casualties, minimal property damage beyond the pre-existing disaster conditions. He landed in front of the observation tower and transformed back to his normal self. "How'd I do?" he asked, slightly out of breath. Nezu looked at his evaluation rubric, where every category had perfect scores except one, unnecessary building throw. "You passed?" the principal said simply. While Izuku completed his modified exam, the regular entrance exam was proceeding at its usual chaotic pace. 150 candidates spread across 7 battle zones, each trying to destroy as many robots as possible in 10 minutes. Bakugo Katsuki was dominating Battle Zone A with his usual explosive efficiency. He'd racked up 43 points in 6 minutes, and his competition wasn't even close. Every robot that approached got a face full of nitroglycerin-powered explosions. He wasn't thinking about the exam. Not really. His mind kept circling back to 3 days ago when he'd been suffocating in sludge, watching that quirkless loser run toward him through fire. Watching Izuku die trying to save him. Then watching that same loser get struck by lightning and turn into a god. It didn't make sense. Quirkless people didn't suddenly develop powers, especially not powers that made them 6'4" and capable of fighting on par with All Might. Something had happened in that moment between death and resurrection, and Bakugo needed to know what. Needed to know if Izuku had been lying about being quirkless all along. A 3-pointer robot lunged at him from behind. Bakugo spun and obliterated it without looking, his kill count climbing to 46. Then the ground shook. The 0-pointer emerged from around a corner. A massive robot easily 50 feet tall, armed with crushing limbs and overwhelming size. Students scattered. Recognizing the pointless obstacle, Bakugo prepared to retreat. Then he heard the scream. The brown-haired girl, the one who'd been friendly to everyone at the assembly, was pinned under rubble. Must have been caught when the 0-pointer demolished a wall. She was pulling at the concrete, activating her quirk to make it weightless, but the debris had her leg trapped. Other students ran past her. No points for rescue. No points for fighting the 0-pointer. Helping her would waste valuable seconds better spent on combat. Bakugo knew what the smart play was, but he also remembered what it felt like to suffocate. Remembered Izuku running into fire for him despite having no reason to care. Damn it! He blasted toward the girl, explosions propelling him forward. The zero-pointer's shadow fell over them both. He grabbed her shoulder. "Stop struggling, I'll free you." But "Shut up and let me work." He placed precise, controlled explosions around the rubble, fragmenting it without injuring the girl. His quirk required exact calculations. Too much force and he'd hurt her, too little and the concrete wouldn't break. He had maybe 5 seconds before the zero-pointer crushed them both. The rubble exploded outward. The girl's leg came free. Bakugo grabbed her and fired a massive blast from his free hand, propelling them both clear as the zero-pointer's foot came down where they'd been standing. They tumbled across the pavement and Bakugo ended up on his back, staring at the sky, wondering when he'd become the kind of person who wasted exam time on rescues. The girl Uraraka, he remembered from the assembly, looked at him with wide eyes. "You saved me. Don't read into it, I just didn't want to watch someone die today." The exam ended with a buzzer. Bakugo had 46 villain points and no idea if it was enough to qualify, but he'd saved someone, and he hated how good that felt. Izuku received his acceptance letter 2 weeks later, delivered via projection device that showed All Might in his muscular form, standing in what looked like a beach covered in trash. "Young Midoriya! Congratulations! You passed the entrance exam with the highest evaluation in UA history." On screen, All Might flexed dramatically. "Your control was exceptional, your judgment was sound, and your heroic instincts were exactly what we look for in future symbols of peace." Izuku's mother watched from the couch, tears already forming. Her baby boy, the one who'd been told he could never be a hero, had just been accepted to the most prestigious hero school in Japan. However, All Might's expression became serious. "Your power comes with unique challenges. You'll be placed in Class 1A under Eraserhead's supervision. He'll make sure you learn control, restraint, and what it means to be a hero beyond raw strength." The projection showed Eraserhead lurking in the background, looking significantly less enthusiastic. "Classes begin in 2 weeks. Prepare yourself. Plus Ultra." The projection ended, leaving Izuku staring at his acceptance letter with trembling hands. He'd done it. Despite being quirkless, despite dying, despite everything, he'd earned his place at UA. His mother pulled him into a hug, and Izuku returned it, feeling smaller than usual in his normal form. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Thanks, Mom. But you need to promise me something. Anything." She pulled back, looking him in the eyes with an intensity that reminded him who he got his determination from. "Promise me you won't sacrifice yourself. I know you want to save everyone, but you're my son first and a hero second. If it comes down to your life or someone else's, you choose yourself. Promise me." Izuku thought about the sludge villain incident, about dying on pavement because he'd chosen to run into fire, about the wizard telling him that his selfless sacrifice was exactly why he'd been chosen. Could he promise to be selfish when heroism demanded sacrifice? Solomon's wisdom whispered that lying to protect her would be kinder than the truth, that she needed the reassurance more than he needed to maintain absolute honesty. "I promise," he said, hating how easy the words came. She hugged him again, satisfied, and Izuku felt the weight of his first real lie, as champion of magic settle across his shoulders like a lid cape. Being a hero was complicated. Class 1A of UA High School's hero course contained 20 students, each selected from thousands of applicants. They were the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the future of heroic society. They were also, Izuku realized within 5 minutes of entering the classroom, completely insane. A boy with blue hair and engines in his calves was lecturing someone about proper sitting posture. A girl with a frog-like appearance was hanging from the ceiling with her tongue. Someone was literally sparkling, which seemed impractical for stealth work. And in the back corner, wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag like a human burrito, was their homeroom teacher. Izuku took the nearest empty seat and tried to blend in, which was difficult when you were 6'4" and glowing slightly from residual magical energy. "Excuse me." The blue-haired boy approached, hand extended. "I am Tenya Ida. You must be Izuku Midoriya, the examinee who received special accommodation. I apologize for my rudeness at the assembly. I did not realize you were facing a different exam structure." Izuku shook his hand, impressed by the formal speech pattern. "It's fine. And yeah, I'm Izuku. Nice to meet you." Your performance in the sludge villain incident was remarkable. To think you possess a transformation quirk of such magnitude. Truly inspiring. Oh, it's not exactly a quirk. Everyone shut up. The sleeping bag moved. Eraserhead emerged like a butterfly from a cocoon, except butterflies were usually pleasant, and this particular hero looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. First lesson of UA, life is unfair. Get used to it. He pulled out his phone and tapped something. The school's AI system projected a message on the board. Quirk apprehension test. You're going to demonstrate your quirks through 8 physical tests. Whoever places last gets expelled. Immediately. The class erupted in protests. This was the first day. They'd just gotten here. This wasn't fair. You want to talk about fair? Aizawa's bloodshot eyes swept the room. Villains don't fight fair. Disasters don't happen on convenient schedules. If you can't handle pressure on day 1, you won't survive day 100. He turned to Izuku. Midoriya, you're up first. Ball throw. Izuku stood, accepting the softball from Aizawa's hand. The class watched with various degrees of curiosity and resentment. He was the special case, the one who'd gotten different exam treatment. They wanted to see if he deserved it. He walked to the throwing circle, held the ball, and whispered the word, Shazam. Lightning struck the courtyard. The transformation was instantaneous, boy to champion in a flash of magical energy. Several students screamed. One fainted. Ida's jaw literally dropped open. Captain Deku stood in the circle, cape flowing, ball looking tiny in his massive hand. He wound up, activated the speed of Mercury and the strength of Hercules simultaneously, and threw. The ball broke the sound barrier before it left the circle. The sonic boom shattered windows in 3 nearby buildings. The ball caught fire from atmospheric friction, kept accelerating, and disappeared into the stratosphere, trailing smoke and ionized air. Aizawa's phone beeped. Infinity. The ball achieved escape velocity. Izuku transformed back, looking embarrassed. Sorry about the windows. Don't apologize, just pay for them. Aizawa's expression was unreadable. Next test, 50-meter dash, and try not to destroy the track. Izuku ran the dash in 0.3 seconds, creating a crater at the starting line from his acceleration. The grip strength test broke the measuring device. The long jump ended with him on the roof of the school building. After the 5th broken piece of equipment, Aizawa called a halt. Midoriya, a word. They stepped away from the class, and Aizawa activated his quirk. His eyes glowed red, his hair floated, and absolutely nothing happened to Izuku's transformed state. I know you claimed erasure doesn't work on you, the teacher said quietly, but I needed to confirm it personally. Whatever you are, it exists outside the rules I understand. I'm not trying to break the rules. The power doesn't work like a quirk. I know, which terrifies me. Aizawa deactivated his quirk. You could kill everyone in that class without effort. You could level this school. Hell, you could probably fight All Might to a standstill, so why are you here? Why bother with classes and tests and playing student when you're clearly beyond any of this? Izuku looked back at his classmates who were watching nervously. Because I don't want to be a weapon. I want to be a hero. And heroes need training, rules, limits. I need to learn when not to use my power as much as how to use it. Good answer. Aizawa pulled out a slip of paper. Here's my personal phone number. If you ever feel like you're losing control, if the power becomes too much, you call me. Immediately. No hesitation. You think I'll lose control? I think you're a kid with god-level abilities and a hero complex. That's a dangerous combination. He turned back to the class. But it's also exactly what we need, so don't prove me wrong. The rest of the tests proceeded with Izuku holding back as much as possible. He still placed first by a massive margin, but at least he didn't destroy any more equipment. The student who placed last was a boy named Mineta, whose quirk involved sticky balls, and whose personality involved being deeply inappropriate toward female classmates. Aizawa expelled him on the spot, ignoring his tears and protests. Lesson learned, the teacher said flatly. UA demands excellence. Deliver or leave. As the class filed out, buzzing with nervous energy and shock, Izuku felt a presence beside him. Bakugo stood there, explosive palms crackling with residual nitroglycerin, expression unreadable. We need to talk, the blonde said. About what? About what really happened when you died. Because I don't believe the quirk awakening story. His voice dropped to a whisper. I was there. I saw you dead, and whatever brought you back wasn't natural. Izuku met his former tormentor's eyes and saw genuine curiosity beneath the aggression. Solomon's wisdom told him that lying now would only make things worse, that Bakugo was smart enough to piece together the truth eventually. Later, he said, somewhere private, and you have to swear not to tell anyone. Deal. They separated, and Izuku wondered if he'd just made a mistake or gained an unexpected ally. Time would tell. The USJ incident happened 3 weeks into the semester, and it happened because the League of Villains had done their homework. Tamura Shigaraki, hand-faced and insane, had studied every UA student file he could steal, had analyzed quirks, weaknesses, combat styles, had created a strategy specifically designed to kill All Might and prove that heroes could be overcome, but his intelligence was 3 weeks old. It didn't account for Izuku Midoriya. The attack began during a rescue training exercise at the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, a massive facility designed to replicate disaster scenarios. Class 1A, accompanied by All Might and the Space Hero 13, was touring the flood zone when reality tore open. A portal of purple-black mist appeared at the plaza, and through it poured villains. Dozens of them, each selected for specific roles in the plan. Shigaraki emerged first, hands in his pockets, grinning behind his hand mask. Heroes, he said cheerfully. Let's play. The class responded instantly. Ida began coordinating defensive positions. Bakugo launched himself at the nearest villain. Todoroki created an ice wall to block the entrance, and Izuku transformed. Shazam! The lightning strike was localized this time, controlled, contained to his immediate area. But the boom still rattled the facility, and when Captain Deku emerged in his full glory, every villain in the plaza stopped moving. Shigaraki's grin faded. What the hell is that? That's not in the file, Kurogiri, the mist villain, said with audible concern. That student wasn't listed as... Captain Deku flew forward at Mercury's speed, crossing 200 meters in less than a second. He grabbed Shigaraki by the collar and lifted him off the ground. You made a mistake coming here, Izuku said, voice resonating with divine power. You threatened my friends, my teachers, my school. His grip tightened. That was your last mistake. Shigaraki tried to activate his decay quirk, placing all 5 fingers on Izuku's wrist. Nothing happened. The magical nature of Shazam's form made it immune to quirk effects, and Shigaraki's eyes widened behind his mask. Kurogiri! Nomu! Now! The portal villain activated his quirk, trying to warp Izuku away. The mist wrapped around Captain Deku's body, attempting to transport him to the flood zone, the fire zone, anywhere but here. But the wisdom of Solomon calculated the warping trajectory, and the speed of Mercury allowed for instant repositioning. Izuku moved faster than the portal could track, pulling Shigaraki with him, and ended up exactly where he'd started. Nice try. Then Nomu appeared. The creature was massive, 9 feet of bioengineered muscle and rage, with an exposed brain and dead eyes. It moved with shocking speed for its size, attacking from behind, throwing a punch that could shatter reinforced concrete. Izuku caught the fist with his free hand. The impact created a shockwave that shattered every window in the facility. The floor beneath them cracked, spiderwebbing outward from the point of impact. Several villains were thrown backward by the pressure wave alone. But Izuku didn't move, didn't budge. He stood firm, holding Shigaraki in one hand and blocking Nomu with the other, the stamina of Atlas making him an immovable object. Is this supposed to be impressive? He asked. Nomu attacked again, raining down punches that would have killed most heroes instantly. Each impact boomed like artillery fire. The ground shook. Cracks spread across the plaza. Izuku blocked every hit with casual ease, his divine physiology absorbing force that would have liquefied steel. Then he smiled, shifted his grip on Shigaraki, and tossed the villain toward Kurogiri. Hold him for me. I'll be right back. He grabbed Nomu by both wrists, kicked off the ground, and flew straight up. The creature struggled, thrashing, trying to break free, but the strength of Hercules was beyond anything genetic engineering could match. Up through the facility's dome, shattering the reinforced glass, up into open sky, accelerating past the speed of sound. Clouds parted around them. The temperature dropped, oxygen thinned, Nomu's struggles weakened as atmospheric pressure decreased. The bioengineered monster had been designed to fight All Might at ground level, not to survive the stratosphere. At 30,000 feet, Izuku stopped ascending and held Nomu at arm's length. You were made to absorb impacts, right? Shock absorption, quirk built into your biology. Solomon's wisdom provided complete analysis of Nomu's capabilities. But here's the thing about quirks. They're based on science, biology, physics. He began to glow, electricity crackling around his body, the power of Zeus manifesting as divine lightning. My power isn't a quirk, it's magic, and magic doesn't follow your rules. Shazam! The transformation lightning struck him, but instead of reverting to human form, he maintained his champion state while channeling the magical energy through his body and into Nomu. The creature seized exposed brain sparking as electricity that bypassed all biological defenses fried its neural pathways. Shazam! Again, more lightning, more power. Nomu's shock absorption couldn't handle magical energy, couldn't process something that existed outside the framework of quirk science. Shazam! 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 By the 5th transformation strike, Nomu was smoking and twitching. By the 10th, its exposed brain had literally shut down, overwhelmed by energy it couldn't absorb or dissipate. Izuku released the charred husk and watched it fall, using super speed to catch it at terminal velocity and slow its descent. No need to let the body crater into the ground and cause additional damage. He landed in the USJ Plaza with Nomu's unconscious form draped over his shoulder. The battle had essentially ended while he was gone. Professional heroes had arrived, villains were being arrested, and Shigaraki had apparently escaped through Kurogiri's portal rather than face Izuku's return. All Might stood at the center of the plaza in his deflated form, staring at Izuku with an expression mixing pride and concern. Young Midoriya, what did you do? I fried its brain with transformation lightning. The magic bypasses its shock absorption. Izuku set Nomu down gently, and restraint-specialized heroes immediately moved to secure it. It was designed to fight you, All Might, not me. I can see that. The symbol of peace looked at the charred creature, then at the demolished plaza, then at Izuku. You saved everyone. Single-handedly stopped a villain attack designed to kill me, at 14 years old. I'm the champion of magic. It's kind of my job. No. All Might's voice was firm. Your job is to be a student. To learn, to grow, not to shoulder the entire burden of heroic society at your age. But I can handle it. That's not the point. The hero placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder, and the gesture was more paternal than professional. Power without wisdom leads to catastrophe. You're strong, yes, stronger than me probably, but strength alone doesn't make a hero. You need experience, mentorship, the chance to make mistakes that don't result in international incidents. Izuku wanted to argue. Rajfrat wanted to point out that he had Solomon's wisdom, that he could calculate optimal strategies for any situation, that his power came with built-in guidance. But All Might was right. He was still a kid, still learning, still figuring out what it meant to be both Izuku Midoriya and the champion of magic. Okay, he said quietly. I'll try to hold back more. I'm not asking you to hold back. I'm asking you to remember that you're part of a team. Let your classmates shine. Let them grow. Don't do everything yourself just because you can. It was a hard lesson for someone who'd spent his entire life watching others succeed while he failed. But Izuku nodded, transformed back to his normal self, and rejoined his classmates as they were evacuated from the facility. Uraraka punched his shoulder. That was amazing. You flew into space and everything. Not quite space, just really high. Still counts, she grinned. You're like a real superhero. Like the flying and the cape and the lightning powers. I guess I am, huh? Bakugo walked past them, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. But as he moved by Izuku, he muttered something under his breath. Thanks for the save. Izuku blinked. Had Bakugo just thanked him? Voluntarily, without explosions or death threats? Maybe his former tormentor was changing, or maybe almost dying twice in 1 month did things to a person's perspective. The sports festival was a national event broadcasted to millions, designed to showcase UA's students to hero agencies and the general public. It was competition, recruitment opportunity, and entertainment all rolled into one explosive package. Izuku had planned to participate normally, keep his power restrained, let his classmates shine, prove he could win through skill and not just overwhelming force. Then Present Mike introduced him as the champion of magic, the kid who beat Nomu, Shazam. And Subtle went out the window. The first event was an obstacle race through a 4-kilometer course filled with traps, robots, and hazards designed to test mobility and quick thinking. Students lined up at the starting gate, psyching themselves up, planning strategies. Izuku transformed with a lightning strike that left scorch marks on the starting platform. Shazam! The race began, and Izuku walked forward at a casual pace while chaos erupted around him. Todoroki froze the ground to trap competitors. Bakugo blasted into the air with explosions. Students with mobility quirks rushed ahead. Izuku reached the first obstacle, a pit filled with robotic landmines that detonated on pressure. The intended strategy was to carefully navigate around them or use quirks to disable the mines safely. Izuku stepped directly onto a mine. It exploded with enough force to crater the ground and would have shredded a normal person. The stamina of Atlas made him invulnerable to conventional explosives. He didn't even flinch, just kept walking through the minefield like he was strolling through a park. Boom, boom, boom. Each step triggered another mine. Each explosion left him completely unharmed. The crowd went wild, half cheering and half horrified at the casual display of invulnerability. "That's cheating," someone yelled from the stands. "That's awesome," someone else countered. Izuku emerged from the smoke, slightly dusty, but otherwise pristine. The second obstacle was the zero-pointer robots from the entrance exam. Massive, imposing, designed to force creative problem-solving. He picked one up, just walked over, grabbed it by the leg, and lifted. The robot was easily 50 feet tall and weighed several tons. Izuku hoisted it overhead like it was made of foam, spun once for momentum, and threw it into a group of 3 other robots. The collision was spectacular. Metal shrieked, circuits sparked. 4 zero-pointers became one massive pile of expensive scrap in under 3 seconds. The crowd lost its collective mind. Izuku continued walking, snacking on an energy bar he'd stored in his cape, while behind him the obstacle race descended into chaos. He crossed the finish line in first place by a 5-minute margin, transformed back to normal, and immediately got swarmed by journalists. How does it feel to dominate so completely? Are you even taking this seriously? Is your power really magic? Can we get a picture? Midnight, the R-rated hero serving as event coordinator, had to literally crack her whip to get the press to back off. Contestants only beyond this point. Midoriya, take a seat and wait for the next event. The second event was a cavalry battle, teams of 4 with point values based on race placement. Izuku, as the first place finisher, was worth 10 million points. Everyone wanted his headband. Everyone wanted to prove they could beat the champion of magic. Forming a team was difficult. "I'll be your horse," Uraraka volunteered immediately. "My zero gravity can make you lighter." "I shall provide speed," Ida declared, engines revving. "Together we shall claim victory." Their fourth member was Tokoyami, whose dark shadow quirk provided offensive capability. Together, they formed a team that was simultaneously the most obvious target and the most difficult to actually attack. The cavalry battle began with controlled chaos. Every team immediately rushed Izuku's group, trying to grab the 10 million point headband. Bakugo led an aggressive assault from the left. Todoroki coordinated a freezing attack from the right. Dozens of other teams swarmed from all directions. Izuku's team responded with ruthless efficiency. Tokoyami's dark shadow created a defensive perimeter, batting away attackers. Ida's engines provided mobility to dodge ice walls and explosion blasts. Uraraka's gravity manipulation made their formation incredibly agile. And Izuku, standing at the top of the formation, didn't transform. He wanted to prove he could win as himself, not just as the champion. Wanted to show that Izuku Midoriya had value beyond the wizard's power. It lasted about 4 minutes. Then, Todoroki created a massive glacier, bigger than anything he'd used before, desperate to claim the headband. The ice wall rose 50 feet, encasing Izuku's entire team in frozen prison. Izuku felt the cold, felt his teammates struggling, felt the ice crushing down. Shazam! The transformation lightning detonated inside the ice block, shattering it instantly. Steam exploded outward. Izuku stood in his champion form, cape flowing, one hand holding the 10 million point headband. "Okay," he said, voice resonating. "New strategy. Hold on tight." He flew straight up, taking his entire team with him. Uraraka made them weightless. Ida provided thrust control. Tokoyami defended against ranged attacks. They stayed in the air for the remaining 3 minutes of the cavalry battle, literally unreachable by ground-based teams. A few students tried to reach them. Bakugo blasted as high as he could, falling just short, but Captain Deku's flight was beyond any mobility quirk in the competition. The buzzer sounded. Midnight announced the winners. Izuku's team had retained all 10 million points without losing a single headband. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Half cheered the spectacular display, half complained about unfair advantages. Izuku transformed back and accepted the victory with awkward humility, knowing he'd just made himself even more of a target for the tournament bracket. The one-on-one tournament matches were where things got personal. Izuku's first opponent was Hitoshi Shinso, a general studies student with a brainwashing quirk. The strategy was simple. Get Izuku to respond verbally, activate the brainwashing, force a surrender. It would have worked on a normal student. Solomon's wisdom recognized the quirk activation the instant Shinso spoke. "Hey, Midoriya, is it true you're just a quirkless kid with a lucky mutation?" Izuku responded, felt the mental intrusion attempt to take hold, and simply rejected it. The wisdom of Solomon included mental fortitude beyond human limits, and the magical nature of his transformation made him resistant to quirk-based mental effects. "That was a good try," Izuku said, walking forward. "But it won't work on me." Shinso's eyes widened. "How?" "My power isn't a quirk. Your brainwashing affects quirk users. I'm something else." Izuku gently pushed Shinso out of bounds, winning the match without violence. The purple-haired student looked devastated, and Izuku stopped before leaving the arena. "You're incredibly talented," he said quietly. "Your quirk is perfect for hero work, interrogation, de-escalation, non-violent resolution. Don't give up just because you lost to me. I'm kind of a special case." Shinso looked up, surprise replacing despair. "You really think so?" "I know so. Keep training. I'll recommend you to the hero course teachers myself." It was a small moment, barely noticed by the crowd, but it represented everything Izuku wanted to be. Not just strong, but kind. Not just powerful, but encouraging. His next opponent was Todoroki, and this match was going to be a spectacle. They faced each other in the arena, and the temperature immediately began fluctuating. Todoroki's ice side activated, creating frost patterns on the ground, but his fire side remained dormant, deliberately suppressed. Izuku recognized the self-sabotage immediately. Solomon's wisdom provided insight into Todoroki's psychology, his complicated relationship with his father, his refusal to use fire because it represented Endeavor's ambitions. "You're handicapping yourself," Izuku said. "Why?" "This ice is my power. I'll win using only this." "But you're so much stronger with both sides. Why limit yourself?" Todoroki's expression hardened. "That's not your concern." Ice erupted from the ground, forming a glacier that dwarfed his previous displays. The temperature plummeted. Frost covered the arena in seconds. Izuku didn't transform. Instead, he flexed, and the strength of Hercules manifested even in his base form, a fraction of his full power, but still beyond human limits. The ice shattered around him, and he walked forward through the blizzard. "You're afraid," he said, voice cutting through the wind. "Afraid that using your fire makes you like your father, Pomis. But your power is yours, Todoroki, not his. You choose what it means." "Shut up!" More ice. Massive walls designed to entomb Izuku completely. This time, Izuku transformed. Shazam! The lightning strike melted the ice instantly. Steam filled the arena. Captain Deku stood in the center, glowing faintly, electricity crackling around his hands. "You want to see real power? Fine. Let me show you what happens when you embrace everything you are." He raised his hands, and the power of Zeus manifested. Lightning gathered above the arena, drawn from the atmosphere, responding to his will. Thunder rumbled. The crowd gasped. "I could end this match right now," Izuku said, voice resonating with divine authority. "One lightning bolt. You'd be unconscious before you hit the ground. But I'm not going to do that. Know why?" Todoroki stared, ice forming around his hands but not launching. "Because I want you to beat me at your best. Not handicapped. Not holding back. I want to fight Shoto Todoroki the hero, not Shoto Todoroki the guy with daddy issues." It was harsh, probably too harsh. But Solomon's wisdom told him that Todoroki needed confrontation, needed someone to challenge his self-imposed limitations. The ice melted. Todoroki's left side ignited. Flames spiraled around him, mixing with ice, creating steam and pressure. "You're right," Todoroki said quietly. "This is my power. Mine." He attacked with both sides simultaneously. ice and fire, creating thermal shockwaves that could shatter steel. The combination was devastating, creative, everything he'd been suppressing. Izuku met the attack head-on. He flew forward, grabbed Todoroki mid-assault, and stopped just short of throwing him out of bounds. "Can you handle the thunder?" Izuku asked, grinning. He clapped his hands. The thunderclap was biblical. Sound and pressure waves radiated outward in a visible shockwave. Todoroki was launched backward, tumbling out of bounds before his fire could reach Izuku. The match ended. Captain Deku stood victorious, and Todoroki lay outside the boundary line, stunned but smiling for the first time anyone could remember. "Thank you," Todoroki said as medics helped him up. "For what?" "For making me remember who I wanted to be." Izuku transformed back, feeling lighter despite the weight of divine power. He'd won the match, but more importantly, he'd helped someone break free from their own limitations. That felt better than any victory. The hero killer Stain attacked Hosu's city on a Saturday night, targeting pro-heroes with brutal efficiency. His quirk allowed him to paralyze victims by ingesting their blood, and he used it to execute heroes he deemed false. Those motivated by money or fame rather than pure ideals. Izuku was in Hosu for his internship with Gran Torino, learning speed techniques and combat application when the attack alerts started flooding in. Multiple heroes down, casualties mounting. The hero killer was working through targets faster than rescue could arrive. Izuku's phone buzzed with a location pin from Ida. The message was simple: Stain, revenge, sorry. Ida's brother had been one of Stain's victims, left paralyzed. This was personal. Izuku transformed mid-stride and flew toward the coordinates at maximum speed, crossing Hosu in seconds. He found Ida in an alley, bleeding from a shoulder wound, paralyzed and lying on the ground while Stain stood over him with a katana. "Another false hero," Stain was saying, voice full of religious fervor. "Another pretender who..." Lightning struck the alley. Izuku descended slowly, cape flowing, eyes glowing. The hero killer looked up, and for the first time in his crusade, fear crossed his scarred face. "Who are you?" "I'm the guy who's going to stop you." Stain moved with incredible speed, blade flashing toward Izuku's throat. The speed of Mercury allowed Izuku to track the movement, but he didn't dodge, didn't block. Just let the katana hit his neck. Clang. The blade shattered against his skin. Fragments of steel scattered across the alley. Stain stared at his broken weapon, then at Izuku, processing the impossibility of what just happened. "What kind of quirk?" "Not a quirk. Magic." Izuku stepped forward, and each footfall echoed like thunder. "Solomon says you're misguided. You think you're purifying hero society, but you're just killing people who were trying to help. Hercules says you're going to jail." Stain dropped the broken sword and pulled knives from his coat. His quirk required blood contact, so if he could just land one cut, one taste of this mysterious hero's blood. Izuku flicked his forehead. The gesture looked casual, almost playful, but the force behind it was devastating. Stain flew backward like he'd been hit by a car, crashing through a dumpster and into the alley wall. The impact cratered bricks. Wind pressure from the flick alone knocked over trash cans and shattered a window. The hero killer slumped, unconscious, blood trickling from a minor head wound. Izuku grabbed a bent steel beam from nearby construction debris, twisted it into a makeshift binding, and wrapped it around Stain with enough tension to restrain but not injure. He checked on Ida, using heat vision to cauterize the shoulder wound, then called emergency services. As sirens approached, Izuku transformed back to his normal self and sat down beside Ida. "That was stupid," he said conversationally, "going after Stain alone. What were you thinking?" "He hurt my brother." Ida's voice was strained, angry, ashamed. "I had to." "Had to what? Get yourself killed? Prove that revenge is more important than being a hero?" Izuku shook his head. "Your brother became a hero to help people. You were about to throw that legacy away for petty vengeance." "It wasn't petty." "Yes, it was. Stain is a murderer. He deserves jail. Right? But you're not a judge or executioner. You're a hero. Act like one." It was harsh, but Ida needed to hear it. Needed to understand that personal grudges couldn't override heroic duty. "I'm sorry," Ida said quietly. "You're right. I lost sight of everything I wanted to be." "Then find it again. Your brother didn't give up when Stain paralyzed him. Don't give up now." Pro heroes arrived, securing Stain and providing medical treatment. Izuku gave a statement. carefully edited to make it seem like a team effort rather than a one-sided beatdown. As he walked away from the scene, Todoroki appeared from around the corner. I got Ida's message too. Came to help, but it looks like you handled it. He was fast, but not fast enough. Izuku looked back at the alley where heroes were loading Stain into a transport vehicle. That could have ended really badly. But it didn't, because you were here. Todoroki fell into step beside him. You're always where you need to be, always strong enough to handle whatever comes. Does it ever bother you? Does what bother me? Being so powerful that nothing can really challenge you. Izuku thought about that. About the sludge villain incident, about dying, about being chosen as champion because he'd run into fire despite having no power at all. The power isn't the challenge, he said finally. Knowing when to use it, how to use it, who to use it for. That's the challenge. I could level a city if I wanted to. Could probably fight every hero in Japan and win. But then what? I'd be a weapon, not a hero. So you hold back. I try to, though I'm not always great at it. He gestured at the destroyed alley. Case in point. Todoroki smiled slightly. You flicked him through a dumpster. That's pretty restrained for you. Yeah, well, Solomonism helps with tactical assessment, but it doesn't always help with proportional response. They walked in comfortable silence back toward the train station, two students processing a night that had gone from routine to deadly and back to calm in under 10 minutes. Izuku checked his phone and saw a text from his mom. Saw the news. Are you safe? He typed back, all good. Stopped a bad guy. Coming home soon. Love you. Being the champion of magic meant power, responsibility, and divine purpose. But being Izuku Midoriya meant having people who worried about him, cared about him, reminded him that he was still just a kid trying to figure things out. He wouldn't trade that for anything. All Might found Izuku on the roof of UA's main building 3 days after the Stain incident, sitting cross-legged in his champion form, watching the sunset. Young Midoriya, may I join you? Sure. The symbol of peace settled beside him, smaller in his deflated form, but no less imposing in presence. You've had quite a month. The USJ, the sports festival, and the hero killer. Most students don't see that much action in their entire first year. I keep ending up in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, depending on perspective. All Might looked out over Musutafu's skyline. You know, when I first met you, you were a quirkless kid asking if you could be a hero. I told you yes because I saw something in you. Determination, heart, the willingness to act despite the odds. And then I died and came back as a demigod. Yes, that was unexpected. All Might chuckled. But it didn't change what I saw in you. The power is impressive, overwhelming even, but it's not what makes you a hero. What does then? The fact that you still ask questions like that. All Might stood, stretching his thin frame. You could have told Ida to handle his own problems, could have let Stain continue his crusade while you focused on your internship, but you didn't. You flew into danger to save your friend, just like you ran into that fire to save young Bakugo. Bakugo wasn't my friend, but you saved him anyway. That's what makes you a hero, Midoriya. Not the lightning or the flight or the impossible strength. The fact that you choose to use all that power to help people, even when it's inconvenient or dangerous or stupid. Izuku stood as well, his 6'4" frame towering over All Might's skeletal form. It was a strange reversal, the student literally looking down at the teacher, but somehow it felt right. Do you think I'm making a difference? Izuku asked quietly. Like, a real difference? Or am I just another powerful person beating up villains? All Might smiled, the genuine expression so different from his public persona's exaggerated grin. You saved Todoroki from his own pain, saved Ida from throwing away his future, stopped Nomu when it could have killed me and dozens of students, defeated Stain when he could have killed more heroes. Yes, Midoriya, you're making a difference. But I'm so much stronger than everyone else. What if I become a crutch? What if other heroes start relying on me instead of growing themselves? Then you teach them to grow. You inspire them to be better. That's what symbols do, Midoriya. They don't just save people, they show people how to save themselves. It was a heavy responsibility for a 14-year-old, even one with godlike powers. But Izuku nodded, accepting it, because that's what he'd signed up for when he said yes to the wizard. Plus Ultra? He said, trying out All Might's catchphrase. Plus Ultra, All Might agreed. Izuku transformed back to his normal self, the lightning strike briefly illuminating the roof, and headed toward the stairwell. He had homework to finish, a mom to call, and a normal teenage life to maintain despite being Earth's mightiest mortal. Behind him, All Might watched the sky and thought about legacies, power, and the strange twist of fate that had put a quirkless kid in a position to surpass even the symbol of peace. The world was changing, and Izuku Midoriya was leading the change. The semester ended with final exams, practical tests against teachers, and the promise of a training camp during summer break. Class 1A had survived their first term at UA, barely, and was emerging stronger, more cohesive, more ready for whatever came next. Izuku passed every exam with perfect scores, though he made a conscious effort not to transform during the written tests. Solomon's wisdom gave him access to knowledge far beyond the curriculum, but he wanted to prove he could succeed as himself. The practical exam paired him against All Might, and it was the first time Izuku had to actually try. All Might, even weakened by his injury, was still the #1 hero. His combat experience, tactical knowledge, and raw determination made him a formidable opponent even when Izuku had overwhelming power advantage. They fought in a mock city district, with the objective being to either restrain All Might or escape the zone within 30 minutes. Izuku chose restraint. He transformed, flew at the hero, and engaged in close combat that shook buildings and shattered windows. All Might's punches were devastating, each one carrying the weight of decades of training. Izuku's counters were measured, controlled, deliberately holding back enough to avoid injuring his mentor. They traded blows for 15 minutes, neither gaining significant advantage, until All Might grinned and said, "You're holding back, young Midoriya. That's good. But let me see what you can really do." Izuku hesitated. All Might attacked with a Texas smash that would have pulverized concrete. Izuku caught it with both hands, absorbed the force, and gently pushed back. "I don't want to hurt you. You won't. But you need to understand your limits, need to know how strong you really are." All Might pulled back, breathing hard. "One full power punch. Let's see if I can take it." "That's insane. That's heroics. Hit me, Midoriya. Show me Earth's mightiest mortal." Izuku wound up, channeling the strength of Hercules fully for the first time in combat. He telegraphed the punch, giving All Might time to brace, then threw it. The impact created a crater. Shockwaves radiated outward. The sound barrier broke. All Might flew backward, caught himself mid-flight, and skidded to a halt 50 meters away. He was smiling. "That's what I wanted to see. Full power, full potential. You could have held back, played it safe, but you trusted me to handle it. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Bruised, definitely, but fine." All Might stood, dusting off his costume. "You pass, not because you hit me, but because you understood when to hold back and when to commit. That's the balance every hero needs to learn." Izuku transformed back, exhausted emotionally rather than physically. Using his full strength had required mental commitment, the willingness to potentially hurt someone he respected. It was a lesson in trust, in understanding that sometimes holding back was wrong, that sometimes people needed you to show them your best, even if it scared them. As the exam ended and students filtered out, comparing results and celebrating successes, Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder. Bakugo stood there, expression serious. "We still need to talk about what really happened that day." "I know. Summer break. I'll explain everything." "You better, because whatever you are, whatever that power is, you're changing things, and I need to know if I'm going to keep up or get left behind." It was the most vulnerable Bakugo had ever been around him, and Izuku recognized the fear beneath the aggression. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of being surpassed by someone who used to be beneath him. "You'll keep up," Izuku said simply. "Your quirk is incredible. You just need to stop seeing everyone else's growth as a threat to your own." Easy for you to say when you're a literal god. "I'm not a god. I'm a kid who got lucky and unlucky at the same time." Izuku smiled. "But I'm still the same person who ran into that fire, still the same person you've known since we were kids. The power doesn't change that." Bakugo studied him for a long moment, then nodded and walked away without another word. Progress was slow, but it was still progress. Summer arrived with heat, humidity, and the promise of training camp in the mountains. Class 1A would be spending a week developing their quirks under the supervision of pro heroes, pushing their limits in controlled environments. Izuku had mixed feelings about it. On one hand, he wanted to grow stronger, master his abilities, become the hero he was meant to be. On the other hand, he was already so powerful that traditional training seemed almost pointless. Then he met the Wild Pussycats, and everything changed. The hero team specialized in rescue operations and quirk development. Pixie Bob, their Earth manipulator, took one look at Izuku in his champion form and grinned. "Oh, this is going to be fun. You think you're invincible? Let's test that." She created a mountain, literally created one from raw earth and stone, shaping terrain with her quirk until a 1,000-foot peak stood where flat ground had been moments before. "Climb it," she said. "No flying, no super speed, just strength and stamina. Let's see if Atlas's endurance is as good as the legends say." It was the first time someone had challenged Izuku to prove his power through endurance rather than destruction, and it was humbling. He climbed for 6 hours straight, hands gripping stone, muscles straining despite divine strength. The mountain kept growing, shifting, forcing him to adapt. When he finally reached the summit, Pixie Bob was waiting. "Not bad. Now do it again. Every day for a week, we're going to forge you into something even gods would respect." The training was brutal, not because it hurt, his body could handle anything, but because it required focus, determination, mental fortitude. He learned to fly while carrying weights that would crush buildings. Learned to use heat vision for precision work rather than destruction. Learned to channel Zeus's lightning in controlled bursts rather than overwhelming blasts, and he trained alongside his classmates, watching them grow, helping them develop, proving All Might's words about inspiration and symbols. Bakugo created new explosion techniques by studying Izuku's lightning patterns. Todoroki learned to mix ice and fire more efficiently by watching how Izuku combined different divine powers. Uraraka developed better aerial combat by practicing with someone who actually flew. They weren't just getting stronger individually, they were becoming a team. On the 5th night of training camp, as everyone sat around a campfire swapping stories and bonding, Uraraka asked the question they'd all been wondering. "Izuku, what's it feel like? Being that powerful?" He thought about it, staring into the flames, trying to put divine experience into human words. "It feels like responsibility," he said finally. "Every day I wake up knowing I could stop a war, prevent a disaster, save thousands of people. But I also know that if I mess up, if I use too much force or make the wrong call, I could cause the disaster I'm trying to prevent." "Do you ever wish you were normal?" Todoroki asked. "Sometimes. When my mom looks at me and I know she's wondering what happened to her normal son. When I have to lie about my power because the truth sounds insane. When I'm so much stronger than everyone that I can't relate to their struggles." He looked around at his classmates. "But then I remember why I have this power. Remember running into that fire, and I realized being normal would mean watching people suffer without being able to help. So no, I don't wish I was normal. I wish I was better at handling what I am." It was honest, vulnerable. The kind of confession that could only happen around a campfire when everyone was too tired to maintain their usual masks. Bakugo, sitting across the fire, spoke up. "You died for me, even after everything I did to you. Why? Because you needed saving. That's all the reason I needed. But I was a terrible person. Still am, kind of. You could have let me die, and no one would have blamed you." Izuku met his eyes. "Yeah, I could have. But that's not who I am. But it's Gokaigen. I don't save people because they deserve it. I save them because they're people. And somewhere under all that anger and aggression, you're someone worth saving." The fire crackled. Someone coughed. The moment stretched. Then Bakugo said, "Thanks for not giving up on me." It wasn't an apology, wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start, and that was enough. The training camp continued for 2 more days before villains attacked. But that's a story for another time. For now, Class 1A sat around their fire, bonding as future heroes, and Izuku felt more human than he had since gaining divine power. The champion of magic might be Earth's mightiest mortal, but Izuku Midoriya was just a kid trying to figure out how to be both powerful and good. And with friends like these, he might actually pull it off. The summer training camp arrived faster than Izuku expected. Class 1A traveled to a remote forest facility owned by the pro hero team at the Wild Pussycats. The moment they arrived, Pixie Bob used her Earthflow quirk to create a massive landslide of earth beasts, forcing the students to fight their way through 3 miles of forest to reach the facility. Izuku transformed midair, golden lightning crackling across his form as he descended toward the earthen monsters. One punch. That's all it took. The shockwave from his fist obliterated every construct simultaneously, reducing them to harmless dirt that scattered on the wind. Midoriya! Aizawa's voice cut through the settling dust. What did I say about showing off? Sorry, Sensei. Izuku powered down, landing lightly. I thought we were supposed to clear the path quickly. The exercise was meant to push your limits through sustained combat, Aizawa said, though his tone held more exasperation than actual anger. Not demonstrate that you can sneeze and solve the problem. The rest of Class 1A emerged from the tree line, staring at the cleared path in various states of disbelief and resignation. I hate him so much, Bakugo muttered, though, without real venom. That's not very plus ultra of you, Bakugo, Kaminari said cheerfully. Shut up, discount Pikachu. The training camp itself proved more challenging, not because the exercises pushed Izuku physically, but because they required restraint and precision. He couldn't just blast through every obstacle. He had to learn control, finesse, the ability to modulate his power to appropriate levels. Your power is absolute, Aizawa told him during one session. That makes it more dangerous than any quirk I've encountered. A quirk user who loses control might hurt someone. You could destroy a city block by accident. Izuku took the words to heart. He spent hours practicing delicate applications of his strength, lifting eggs without cracking them, manipulating wind currents to move feathers, using lightning at voltages low enough to power electronics instead of vaporizing them. It was humbling work for someone who could punch through mountains. On the third night of camp, Izuku stood alone in a clearing, transformed, calling down precise strikes of lightning to hit targets he'd set up. Each bolt had to be exactly 1.21 gigawatts, enough to power the target's light, nothing more. You make it look easy, Todoroki's voice came from the shadows. Izuku turned, lightning dancing between his fingers. It's not. Every time I transform, I feel like I could accidentally break everything around me. Solomon's wisdom helps, but wisdom and restraint aren't the same thing. Todoroki stepped into the clearing, ice crystals forming and melting around his left side. My father spent years trying to make me use my full power. You're learning to use less of yours. Strange how that works. Power without purpose is just destruction, Izuku said, repeating something the wizard had told him. I'm strong enough to solve almost any problem with force. That means I need to be smart enough to know when not to. And when you do need to? Todoroki asked. Izuku's eyes glowed with divine lightning. Then I make sure the problem stays solved. They stood in comfortable silence, 2 students bearing powers they hadn't asked for, learning what it meant to be heroes rather than just powerful. The attack came on the 4th night. Izuku woke to screaming and the smell of smoke. His mind processed the situation in microseconds, Solomon's wisdom showing him attack patterns, threat assessments, optimal response strategies, the League of Villains, multiple targets, Mustard's gas spreading through the forest, muscular engaging students, moonfish hunting in the trees, Spinner and Magni coordinating. And worst of all, Bakugo, Izuku breathed. He transformed, golden light exploding through the cabin's roof as he shot into the sky. Mercury's speed carried him across the forest in heartbeats. He found Todoroki and Bakugo fighting moonfish, the blade-wielding villain's teeth extending in deadly arcs. Izuku appeared between them and Moonfish so fast that lightning after images hung in the air. His hand closed around Moonfish's extended teeth, and he yanked. Hard. The villain flew through 3 trees before Izuku's follow-up punch sent him cratering into the ground, unconscious. You're late, Bakugo said, blasting embers from his palms. I'm literally faster than light, Izuku replied. I got here 2 seconds after waking up. Should have been 1 second. Despite everything, Izuku grinned. Some things never changed. He left them to regroup and shot toward Muscular's position. The villain had cornered a child, Kota, the pussycat's nephew, and was preparing to kill him. Izuku's blood ran cold. Shazam! He hit Muscular like divine judgment made flesh. The impact shattered the villain's muscle fibers, broke his augmented bones, and sent him tumbling across the mountainside like a rag doll. Izuku caught Koda before the child could fall, landing gently despite the speed. "You're safe now," Izuku said softly. Koda stared up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. You're real. The champion of magic is real. Very real, and very angry at people who hurt kids." He delivered Koda to the Pussycats, then returned to systematically dismantling the League's attack. Mustard's gas he dispersed with controlled wind bursts. Spinner and Magni he captured in under 3 seconds. Every League member fell like dominoes against someone who moved faster than they could perceive and hit harder than they could withstand. But when he returned to where he'd left Bakugo and Todoroki, he found only Todoroki. "They got him," Todoroki said, ice spreading from his fists in fury. "That twice clone distracted us while compressed Bakugo into a marble. Portal quirk took them away." Izuku's aura exploded outward, golden lightning scorching the earth. "Where?" "I don't know. Solomon, show me." The wisdom activated, processing every piece of evidence, every clue, every trace of residual energy from the portal. The answer materialized in his mind with absolute certainty. "Camino Ward," Izuku said. "An old warehouse district. They're regrouping there." "Midoriya, we should wait for the heroes. They took my friend." Izuku's voice carried the weight of Zeus's thunder. "I'm getting him back, now." He shot into the sky, lightning trailing behind him like a comet. Solomon's wisdom guided him across hundreds of miles in seconds. Mercury's speed, turning the journey into a blur of light and sound, he found the warehouse exactly where his divine knowledge said it would be. The League of Villains had gathered inside. Shigaraki, Kurogiri, Compress, Twice, Dabi, Toga, and Bakugo, restrained but defiant as ever. Izuku didn't bother with the door. The wall exploded inward as he walked through it, divine power radiating from every step. The villains turned, shock written across their faces. "Give him back," Izuku said simply. "The champion of magic," Shigaraki scratched his neck frantically. "Master said you might come." "Your master is smart. Now give me my friend before I take him." Dabi unleashed a wave of blue flames. Izuku walked through them without slowing, the fire parting around his invulnerable form like water. His fist caught Dabi in the stomach, a carefully measured blow that knocked him unconscious without killing him. Compress tried to seal him in a marble. The compression sphere shattered against Izuku's skin like glass. Twice created 50 copies of himself. Izuku moved through them faster than perception, each clone dispersing with precise strikes. Toga lunged with her knife. Izuku caught her wrist gently but firmly and pressure pointed her into unconsciousness. 15 seconds. That's how long it took to neutralize every League member except Shigaraki and Kurogiri. "Kurogiri, get master," Shigaraki rasped. "Now." A portal opened. Izuku's eyes widened as a figure stepped through. Tall, wearing a suit, his face hidden behind a respirator mask. The air itself seemed to warp around him with stolen power. All for One had arrived. So, the villain's voice resonated with stolen vocal sound quirks. "This is the champion who has my students so frightened. I must admit I'm curious about this magic of yours." Izuku positioned himself between All for One and Bakugo. "Let him go. This is your only warning." Fascinating, such confidence. All for One's hand extended. "Let's see if your power can be taken like any other." The pull came, an irresistible force that had stolen hundreds of quirks over 2 centuries. It washed over Izuku like water over stone, finding nothing to grasp. Magic wasn't a quirk. It wasn't genetic. It was divine gift, granted by powers older than nations. All for One's composure cracked. "Impossible. My quirk takes everything." "It takes quirks," Izuku said. "I don't have one. I have something you'll never understand. Something you can't steal, can't copy, can't comprehend." He moved. Mercury's speed closed the distance before All for One could react. Hercules' strength drove a fist into the villain's stomach, and for the first time in 200 years, All for One felt real pain. The villain flew backward through 3 walls, impact quirks flashing uselessly against divine might. Izuku followed, lightning crackling. "You hurt my friends, terrorized my class, kidnapped Bakugo." Each word came with another thunderous blow. "You've hidden in shadows, pulling strings, thinking yourself untouchable." All for One unleashed everything. Air cannons, kinetic boosters, muscle augmentation, impact reversal, warping, dozens of quirks activated simultaneously. The warehouse district erupted in explosions and destruction. Izuku stood in the center of the chaos, untouched. Achilles' invulnerability made him impervious. Atlas's stamina meant he wouldn't tire. Zeus's power let him command the very lightning these quirks tried to redirect. Is this all the great All for One has? Izuku's voice carried divine contempt. 200 years of stealing power, and you're still just a man playing with abilities you didn't earn. And what are you? All for One snarled, blood seeping through his mask. A child given a gift you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Izuku's aura intensified. I understand that real power isn't taken, it's earned, given to those deemed worthy. You steal scraps. I was chosen by the gods themselves. He could end it. One punch, full power, and All for One would cease to exist. But something held him back, Solomon's wisdom showing him a bigger picture, a web of consequences, a portal opened behind All for One. Kurogiri retrieving his master. This isn't over, champion, All for One said, backing toward escape. You may have magic, but I have time. I've waited decades before. I can wait again. Run, Izuku said coldly. But know this. Next time you threaten my friends, I won't hold back. Next time, your 200 years end. All for One vanished through the portal with Kurogiri and the unconscious League members. Only Izuku and Bakugo remained in the ruined warehouse. Izuku powered down, exhaustion finally hitting him. He'd fought All for One, the most dangerous villain in history, and driven him away. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a warning shot. Took you long enough? Bakugo said from where he was still bound. Izuku laughed despite everything and freed his friend. You're welcome. I didn't say thank you. You were thinking it really loudly. They were evacuating when the real heroes arrived. All Might, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, and others ready for war. They found only rubble and 2 students. All Might's eyes went wide. Young Midoriya. What happened here? All for One came for Bakugo, Izuku said simply. I stopped him. The symbol of peace looked at the destruction, the crater where Izuku's punches had landed, the scorched earth from divine lightning, the sheer devastation of a battle between mortal evil and divine power. Did you? All Might couldn't finish the question. He escaped. I could have stopped him permanently, but... Izuku's voice was heavy. I don't know if I should have. If it's my place to decide who lives and dies. All Might put a hand on his shoulder, his smile sad. That's the question every hero with true power must face. The fact that you're asking it means you're still thinking like a hero, not a god. I don't feel like either right now, Izuku admitted. I feel like a kid who just fought a monster and isn't sure if he made the right choice. Then, you're exactly where you need to be, All Might said. Never stop questioning, young Midoriya. The day you stop is the day you become what you fight against. The aftermath was complicated. UA went into lockdown. Dorms were established. The Hero Public Safety Commission wanted to interview Izuku extensively about his encounter with All for One. The media went wild with speculation about the Battle of Kamino between the Champion of Magic and the Symbol of Evil, but something else happened too, something Izuku hadn't expected, the Provisional Hero License Exam. You can't be serious, Izuku said, staring at the exam notice. Completely serious, Aizawa replied. Stopping All for One doesn't exempt you from proper hero certification. If anything, it makes it more important that you learn proper protocol. The exam took place at the Takoba National Stadium with students from hero schools across Japan competing. The first test was simple. Hit targets on other examinees with balls while protecting your own targets. Izuku transformed and finished his portion in 4.3 seconds, moving too fast for anyone to track, placing balls with precision that would have made professional marksmen weep. Then he waited while everyone else finished their tests over the course of 2 hours. This is humiliating, he muttered to Todoroki. You did this to yourself by being too efficient, his friend replied without sympathy. The second phase was disaster rescue, a simulated emergency where examinees had to save civilians while managing a crisis. Izuku saw the scenario and immediately understood the problem. He could save everyone in 30 seconds. Every civilian, every victim, every person in danger could be evacuated faster than anyone could blink. But that wasn't the point of the exam. Solomon's wisdom showed him what the examiners were looking for. Cooperation, communication, proper procedure, consideration of other heroes' roles. They wanted to see teamwork, not solo domination. So Izuku deliberately held back. He coordinated with other students, communicated rescue priorities, worked as part of a team instead of a one-man army. He saved people at normal speeds, visible to observers, following protocols he could have bypassed with raw power. It felt wrong. Every second he spent following procedure was a second. Someone remained in danger in the simulation. His instincts screamed at him to just transform and solve everything. But he forced himself to remember. This wasn't about showcasing power. It was about learning to be a hero among heroes, not a god among mortals. When the results came, Izuku passed with marks that were good but not exceptional. Several students who'd performed better in the technical sense received their provisional licenses. Izuku did not. What? He stared at the results in disbelief. The examiner, a hero named Miss Joke, explained with surprising seriousness. Midoriya, your power is unprecedented. But during the rescue phase, you hesitated constantly, second-guessed yourself, and appeared conflicted about using your abilities. A provisional license requires confidence in your methods. I was trying to work with the team. By deliberately underperforming, she said gently. We watched you. We know what you can do. The issue isn't that you're too powerful, it's that you don't know when to use that power and when to hold back. That uncertainty makes you dangerous in disaster scenarios. Izuku felt the words like physical blows. He'd tried to do the right thing and failed anyway. You'll have another chance at the remedial exam, Miss Joke continued. Take this time to figure out who you are as a hero. Are you the champion of magic who can solve any crisis? Or are you Izuku Midoriya who works alongside other heroes? You need to reconcile those identities before you're ready for a license. Back at UA, Izuku sat in his dorm room, still transformed, golden lightning crackling around him in frustration. A knock came at his door. It's open, he called. Bakugo entered, which was surprising enough. The two of them had been better lately. Not quite friends, but not enemies either. Something complex born from years of history and recent understanding. You failed on purpose, Bakugo said without preamble. I didn't. Don't bullshit me. I watched you. You were holding back so much you might as well have been fighting with one hand tied behind your back. Izuku powered down with a sigh. What was I supposed to do? Save everyone instantly and make every other student look incompetent? Yes. Bakugo's hands sparked with small explosions. That's literally the point of having power, using it. You think all might holds back during disasters? You think endeavor counts to 10 before saving people? They're not planetary level. So what? You're worried about making people feel bad? People are dying, Midoriya. Real people, in real disasters, while you're playing nice and trying not to show off. Bakugo's voice rose. You want to know what pisses me off most about you? I'm sure you'll tell me. It's not that you're stronger than everyone. It's not that you got this magic gift, while the rest of us have to work with what we're born with. Bakugo stepped closer. It's that you have the power to save everyone, solve every problem, stop every villain, and you hesitate because you're worried about hurt feelings. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. You got magic god powers. I got explosion hands. Todoroki got trauma and ice. We all play with the cards we're dealt. Bakugo's eyes burned with intensity. You were given the power to be Earth's greatest hero. Stop apologizing for it and be that. Silence filled the room after Bakugo's outburst. Izuku stared at his hands, normal, human, unremarkable hands that could call down divine lightning. What if I mess up? Izuku asked quietly. What if I use too much power and hurt someone? Then you deal with it like every other hero who's ever made a mistake, Bakugo said. But you don't let fear of screwing up stop you from trying. That's not being a hero. That's being a coward with a god complex. After Bakugo left, Izuku lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind drifted back to the Rock of Eternity, to the wizard's words. You will be Earth's mightiest mortal, champion of magic and defender of the innocent. Not one of Earth's heroes. Not a powerful ally. The mightiest mortal. The champion. The defender. Maybe Bakugo was right. Maybe trying to be just another hero was dishonoring the gift he'd been given. The wizard hadn't chosen him to be humble. He'd chosen him to be mighty. The question wasn't whether to use his power. It was how to use it wisely. Weeks passed in a strange rhythm. Izuku threw himself into academics and training, trying to find the balance between divine champion and normal student. The work-study program began, and Izuku joined with Todoroki and Bakugo under Endeavor's agency. The number one hero, now that All Might had retired, watched Izuku with barely concealed interest during their first meeting. "So you're the one who fought All for One to a standstill," Endeavor said. "I wouldn't call it a standstill," Izuku replied. "More like I drove him off before finishing the fight." "And why didn't you finish it?" Izuku met Endeavor's flames without flinching. "Because I wasn't sure if killing him was the right choice. Mercy toward villains is weakness." "Is it?" Izuku's eyes glowed with distant lightning. "Or is knowing when to show mercy wisdom? Solomon granted me divine wisdom, Endeavor. I used it." The number one hero studied him for a long moment. "We'll see. Real heroism isn't about having power. It's about how you use it when everything is on the line." "Then, I guess we're in agreement," Izuku said. The work study brought its own challenges. Petty crimes that Izuku could solve in microseconds but had to handle carefully. Villain encounters where he needed to coordinate with Endeavor rather than just overwhelming the opposition. Learning to be part of a team when he could be an army. It was during one patrol that Solomon's wisdom suddenly screamed, "Danger." "Something's wrong," Izuku said. Transforming mid-step, Endeavor's flames intensified. "What?" "Underground. There's a little girl. She's terrified. She's covered in bandages. Izuku's eyes went wide with horror as divine knowledge showed him the truth. "Oh God. Overhaul." "The Shihasaikai?" Endeavor frowned. "They're under investigation, but we don't have evidence." "I have evidence." Izuku's aura crackled with barely contained fury. "I can see her. Eri. She's 6 years old. They're using her blood to make quirk-destroying bullets. They've been torturing her, breaking her down, rebuilding her, breaking her again." "Midoriya. We need warrants. Proper procedure." "There's a child being tortured." Divine lightning exploded from Izuku, scorching the air. "I don't need a warrant to stop that." He shot into the sky before Endeavor could respond, Solomon's wisdom guiding him to the Shihasaikai compound with absolute certainty. He didn't care about protocol, didn't care about proper hero procedure, didn't care about anything except the terrified little girl his divine senses could feel crying in a basement. The compound's walls meant nothing to someone who could walk through steel. Izuku descended through the building like divine wrath, passing through floors like they were smoke, following the trail of suffering to its source. He found Eri in a sterile room, covered in bandages, small and broken and scared. Overhaul stood over her, wearing his plague mask, preparing another session. Izuku materialized in the room so fast that air displaced violently, shattering windows. "Step away from her," his voice carried Zeus's thunder. "Now." Overhaul turned calmly. "The champion of magic, I wondered when you'd interfere. This is private business. You're torturing a child to make weapons. There's nothing private about it. This is science, progress. She's my daughter. She's not your anything!" Izuku's shout shook the building's foundations. "She's a scared little girl who needs help, and I'm going to give it to her." Overhaul's hands touched the ground. The entire room erupted into spikes. Walls were forming into deadly mazes, the building itself becoming a weapon against Izuku. It meant nothing. Izuku walked through the attacks like a man walking through rain, uncomfortable but unthreatened. His hand shot out, faster than Overhaul could perceive, and grabbed the villain by the throat. "You made a mistake," Izuku said quietly, his grip tightening. "You hurt someone who couldn't fight back. You used your quirk to cause suffering instead of prevent it. You're everything wrong with power." "You're crushing my throat." Overhaul choked. "I'm aware." Izuku's eyes blazed with divine judgment, "and I'm thinking very carefully about whether the world needs people like you in it." "Midoriya, don't!" a voice called from behind. Izuku turned to see Endeavor, Todoroki, and Bakugo at the destroyed entrance. The number one hero looked at the scene, at Eri cowering in the corner, at Overhaul dangling from Izuku's grip, at the pure fury radiating from the champion of magic. "He's not worth it," Endeavor said. "Killing him makes you a murderer. Does it?" Izuku's voice was cold. "Or does it make me the only one willing to permanently stop someone who tortures children?" "It makes you the same as him," Todoroki said quietly. "Someone who decides who lives and dies based on their own judgment." Izuku looked at Eri, at her terrified eyes, her small broken body, the evidence of months of abuse. Then he looked at Overhaul, who even now was trying to activate his quirk, trying to reform his crushed throat. Solomon's wisdom showed him two paths. Kill Overhaul, ensure he never hurt anyone again, cross a line he couldn't uncross. Or spare him, trust the justice system, risk the possibility of escape or return. Izuku made his choice. His grip tightened further. Not enough to kill, but enough to break. Overhaul's arms shattered at the elbows, crushed beyond any hope of surgical repair. The villain's quirk required his hands to touch things. Without functional arms, he was powerless. You don't get to die, Izuku said, dropping the screaming villain. You get to live knowing you're nothing. No quirk, no power, no ability to ever hurt anyone again. Just a broken man in a cell. He turned to Eri, powering down his aura to look less terrifying. He knelt beside her, making himself small and non-threatening. Hi, he said softly. My name is Izuku. I'm here to help. Eri stared at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering. Are you really the champion? I am. And I promise no one will ever hurt you again. People always promise that, she whispered. Then they hurt me anyway. Izuku felt his heart break. This child had been hurt so badly she couldn't even trust rescue. I'm different, he said gently. I'm strong enough to keep my promises. Watch. He transformed again, but this time, instead of terrifying divine power, he made the lightning soft, gentle, forming shapes in the air like a light show. Animals made of golden electricity danced around Eri, making her eyes widen with wonder instead of fear. I'm going to pick you up now, Izuku said, and we're going to fly somewhere safe. Is that okay? Eri hesitated, then nodded slightly. Izuku lifted her with infinite care, cradling her like she was made of glass, and rose into the air. Behind him, Endeavor was already calling for backup and medical teams. The Shi-Hasaikai would be raided, dismantled, destroyed. Every member would face justice. But Izuku didn't care about any of that. He cared about the little girl in his arms who had finally stopped shaking, who was looking at him like he might actually be the hero he claimed to be. Where are we going? Eri asked. Somewhere safe, Izuku promised. Somewhere with people who will help you heal. And I'll visit every day to make sure you're okay. Every day, every single day, I promise. This time, she believed him. The aftermath of the Shi-Hasaikai raid was complex. Eri was placed in Yue's care under Recovery Girl's supervision. The authorities tried to argue, but when the champion of magic stated that Eri was under his personal protection, they decided not to push the issue. Izuku visited her daily, just as he'd promised. Sometimes he came as himself, sometimes transformed, letting her get comfortable with both versions of him. Slowly, painfully slowly, she began to heal. You're different from other heroes, Eri said one day while they were drawing together. How so? You're not afraid. Everyone else is scared of something. But you're just you. Izuku smiled sadly. I'm scared of lots of things, Eri. I'm scared of failing people, scared of using too much power, scared of not being worthy of this gift I was given. But you saved me anyway. Being scared doesn't mean you don't act. It means you act despite being scared. That's what heroes do. Eri considered this, then went back to her drawing, a picture of Izuku in his transformed state, golden lightning surrounding him, with her holding his hand. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Anything. Why didn't you kill Overhaul? Everyone says you could have, that you should have. Izuku was quiet for a long moment, because killing him would have been easy, and I was chosen to be Earth's mightiest mortal, not Earth's greatest executioner. There's a difference. What difference? A mortal makes mistakes, has doubts, questions themselves. A mortal can change their mind, can grow, can learn. Izuku looked at his hands. The moment I start killing everyone I think deserves it, I stop being mortal. I become something else, something scarier than any villain. But what if he escapes? Then I'll stop him again, and again, as many times as it takes. Izuku's eyes glowed faintly. Being a hero isn't about solving problems once and forever. It's about being there every time, protecting people even when it's hard, even when it would be easier to just end things. Eri hugged him then, sudden and fierce, a child seeking comfort from someone she trusted. Izuku held her gently, golden light surrounding them both like a shield against the world. Time passed. Autumn became winter. The school year continued with its challenges and triumphs. Izuku passed his remedial exam, this time without hesitation, using his powers efficiently while coordinating with other examinees, finding the balance between divine champion and team player. The school festival arrived. Class 1A decided to do a concert and dance performance. Izuku, despite protests, got roped into dancing on stage. "This is humiliating," he muttered during rehearsal. "You fight gods and monsters," Mina said cheerfully. "You can dance for 3 minutes. Fighting is easier. At least I know I'm good at that." The performance went well. Izuku didn't transform, didn't use any powers, just danced with his classmates like a normal student. For a brief moment, he wasn't the champion of magic or Earth's mightiest mortal. He was just Izuku Midoriya, student, having fun with friends. Eri watched from the audience, clapping and smiling. Real smiles, genuine joy. Seeing her happiness made all the embarrassment worth it. After the performance, Izuku found Bakugo on the roof, watching the stars. "You did good today," Bakugo said without looking at him. "Thanks. You too." "I wasn't fishing for compliments, nerd." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you ever wish things were different?" Izuku asked. "That I hadn't gotten this power? That we'd just grown up normal?" Bakugo snorted. "You were never going to be normal. Things, even when you were quirkless, you were analyzing heroes, taking notes, planning how to save people. This magic thing just gave you the tools to match your hero complex." "That's not." "And no," Bakugo interrupted. "I don't wish it was different. You having this power, it pisses me off sometimes, makes me work harder, pushes me to be better." He finally looked at Izuku. "The world needs someone like you, someone stupid enough to try saving everyone with the power to actually pull it off. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it." But they both smiled. Winter brought new challenges, reports of unusual Nomu activity, increased villain organization, whispers of something big building in the shadows, and then during a cold January night, it happened. The emergency alert went out across every hero agency in Japan. A high-end Nomu, an artificial being with multiple quirks and near-human intelligence, had appeared in downtown Tokyo. It was attacking Endeavor. Izuku was at UA when the alert came. He transformed and shot into the sky without hesitation, crossing the distance to Tokyo in seconds. He arrived to find Endeavor fighting desperately against the Nomu, flames blazing, but clearly being overwhelmed. The creature was fast, strong, regenerating from every injury. "Prominence burn." Endeavor unleashed his ultimate technique. The Nomu tanked it and laughed. "Weak, you're the new number one? Disappointing." Then Izuku landed between them. The shockwave from his arrival cracked the pavement and shattered nearby windows. He stood tall, lightning crackling, divine power radiating like a physical force. "You want a real fight?" Izuku said. "Let's see how you handle actual power." The Nomu charged. Izuku didn't dodge, he met the charge head-on. His fist collided with the Nomu's reinforced skull, and divine strength proved superior to artificial enhancement. The creature's head exploded into ash. The entire fight lasted 1.3 seconds. Izuku stood over the dissolving Nomu remains, not even breathing hard. Around him, heroes and civilians stared in shock. Some had never seen the champion of magic fight seriously. They'd heard stories, seen news reports, but witnessing it directly was different. This was power beyond quirks, beyond human limitation. This was divine. Endeavor approached, nursing his injuries. "You made that look easy." "It was easy," Izuku said honestly. "These Nomu, even the high-end ones, they're still just artificial constructs. They're not real challenges." "Then what is?" Izuku looked toward the horizon, toward where All for One was hiding, planning, waiting. "Someone who's had 2 centuries to perfect evil. Someone I should have killed when I had the chance." "You're still thinking about Kamino?" "Every day." Izuku powered down. "I let him escape because I wasn't sure, because I was afraid of crossing that line. And now he's out there, making more Nomus, planning more attacks. Second guessing is natural. Not for me." Izuku's eyes held distant lightning. "Solomon's wisdom shows me optimal paths. I knew killing All for One was the surest way to stop his plans. I chose mercy anyway. If people die because of that choice, their blood is on my hands." Endeavor was quiet for a moment. Every hero has those thoughts. Every hero wonders if they should have done more, acted sooner, been harsher. It's the burden of power. "But I have more power than anyone." "Shouldn't my burden be greater?" "Maybe. Or maybe your burden is the same as ours, just tested more severely." Endeavor's flames dimmed. "You want my advice? Stop thinking like a god deciding fates. Start thinking like a hero saving lives. The difference matters." Izuku considered those words long after the cleanup was finished, after the media frenzy, after returning to UA. Returning to UAA, he found himself at the Rock of Eternity again, transported there in his dreams, standing before the empty throne where the wizard once sat. "I don't know if I'm doing this right," Izuku said to the empty chamber. "You gave me this power to be Earth's defender, but I don't know how to defend Earth without becoming something terrifying." The wizard's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "You think defending requires perfection? It requires only presence, the willingness to stand when others fall, to fight when others flee, and to try when others surrender. But what about the choices? Kill or spare, act or wait, use full power or hold back? Those are not questions I can answer for you, Izuku Midoriya. Solomon's wisdom shows you paths, but you must choose which to walk. That is the burden of mortality. That is why I chose a mortal to be my champion, not a god." Because gods don't question themselves? Because gods forget what it means to struggle with right and wrong. They see absolutes where mortals see nuance. You question yourself. That is your strength, not your weakness. Izuku woke from the dream with tears on his face and clarity in his heart. He didn't need to have all the answers. He just needed to keep trying to find them. Spring arrived with both beauty and tragedy. Class 1A entered their second year at UA. Izuku had grown, not just in power, though his mastery of the Six Elders' gifts had deepened, but in confidence and understanding. Then the Paranormal Liberation War began. Intelligence gathered by heroes worldwide pointed to a massive villain organization, the merger of the League of Villains and the Meta Liberation Army, creating the Paranormal Liberation Front. They had numbers, resources, and worst of all, they had All for One's guidance from the shadows. The hero assault was planned for March. Every major hero would participate in simultaneous raids on PLF locations across Japan. It was going to be the largest hero operation in history. Izuku stood at the briefing with the other students who'd been cleared for combat participation. Endeavor laid out the plan. Multiple teams hitting multiple bases, trying to catch the villains before they could coordinate a response. "Midoriya," Endeavor addressed him directly. "You'll be with the main assault team hitting their primary headquarters. We need your power for what we expect to find there." "What are we expecting?" "Shigaraki Tamura. Intelligence suggests he's undergoing some kind of enhancement procedure. All for One is trying to make him the perfect vessel." Izuku's blood ran cold. Vessel for what? For All for One himself. He's dying, his body breaking down from age and damage. He's trying to transfer his consciousness and quirk into Shigaraki. Solomon's wisdom activated, showing Izuku the horrifying implications. If All for One succeeded, he'd have a young, powerful body with decades of combat experience and hundreds of stolen quirks. He'd be unstoppable by conventional means. "When do we move?" Izuku asked. "Tomorrow at dawn." That night, Izuku couldn't sleep. He visited Eri, who'd become something like a little sister to him. She was doing better, smiling more, talking more, slowly healing from her trauma. "You're going to fight tomorrow," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes." "The bad man who hurt you before?" "Yes." Eri hugged him tight. "Come back. You promised you'd visit every day." "I did, and I keep my promises." "Promise you'll win." Izuku looked down at her. This child who'd been hurt so badly, who'd learned to trust again, who believed in him absolutely. "I promise," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The assault began at dawn. Heroes struck simultaneously across Japan, but Izuku's focus was on the main target, the PLF headquarters where Shigaraki was kept in some kind of medical tank. His transformation nearly complete. They breached the facility with overwhelming force. Pro-heroes and students worked in coordinated teams, pushing through villain resistance. Izuku transformed and became a golden comet, tearing through defenses like tissue paper. Then they reached the laboratory, and everything went wrong. Shigaraki's transformation was further along than intelligence suggested. As heroes burst into the chamber, his eyes snapped open in the tank. The glass shattered. His hand touched the ground. Decay spread like a wave of death, disintegrating everything it touched. Walls, floor, equipment, heroes who couldn't get clear fast enough. The decay wave spread for miles, destroying entire city blocks in seconds. Izuku grabbed civilians and heroes alike, moving faster than thought, evacuating hundreds of people before the decay could reach them. But even with Mercury's speed, even with Atlas's stamina, there were so many people. 3 heroes died before he could reach them. He watched them crumble to dust, their screams cut short, and something inside him broke. Shigaraki! Izuku's shout carried divine fury. He shot toward the villain, fist cocked back, ready to end this permanently. Shigaraki met his charge with a speed that shouldn't have been possible. Multiple quirks activated at once. Search to track Izuku's movements, airwalk to maneuver mid-flight, rivet to enhance his strength. They collided in midair, and the shockwave leveled everything for 100 meters. But Shigaraki was different now. Stronger. Faster. His white hair had grown long, his body enhanced by All for One's modifications. When he spoke, his voice carried dual tones, his own and something ancient, evil, familiar. There you are, champion. All for One's consciousness spoke through Shigaraki's body. I've been preparing for our rematch. You killed those heroes, Izuku's aura blazed. You murdered them without hesitation. I'm a villain. It's what we do. Did you expect anything else? They clashed again, trading blows that shattered the landscape. Shigaraki was powerful, arguably the strongest quirk user alive now. He had All for One's techniques, All for One's experience, and a young body at its physical peak, but he wasn't planetary level. He wasn't divine. Izuku's fist caught Shigaraki in the ribs, and even with shock absorption quirks, bones cracked. His follow-up strike sent the villain cratering into the earth. You're stronger, Shigaraki admitted, pulling himself from the rubble. Much stronger than at Kamino. But strength alone won't win this. He activated a combination, warping, radio waves, scatter, turning himself into transmitted energy that teleported erratically, impossible to track by conventional means. But Izuku had Solomon's wisdom. He saw the pattern, predicted the destination, and was waiting when Shigaraki rematerialized. I can see everything you're going to do before you do it, Izuku said, catching Shigaraki's wrist before the decay could activate. Every quirk, every technique, every trick All for One taught you, Solomon shows me how to counter it all. Desperation flashed in Shigaraki's eyes. He activated every quirk simultaneously, dozens of powers flowing through him in a suicidal surge of energy. The air itself warped from the power output. Izuku weathered it all. Achilles' invulnerability made him untouchable. The energy attacks that could have leveled cities broke against his skin like rain. It's over, Izuku said. You can't win this. You could never win this. All for One made you into his perfect weapon, but I'm the wizard's chosen champion. There's a difference. What difference? Shigaraki snarled. We're both just vessels for higher powers. The difference is I chose this. I accepted the responsibility, the burden, the consequences. You were made into this against your will, twisted by All for One's ambition. Izuku's expression softened slightly. Somewhere inside you is Tenko Shimura, a scared child who needed help. I'm sorry we failed you then. I'm sorry I can't save you now. Don't you dare pity me. Shigaraki lunged, decay activating. Izuku caught his hand, actually caught it, holding the quirk-enhanced fingers inches from his face. Decay tried to activate against his skin and failed. Divine invulnerability trumped atomic disintegration. I don't pity you, Izuku said quietly. I mourn what you could have been. Then other heroes arrived. Endeavor, Best Genist, Mirko, dozens of pros ready to contain Shigaraki. They had restraints, suppression fields, every tool needed to capture him alive. Midoriya, we need him alive for questioning. Endeavor shouted. Izuku looked at Shigaraki, at the amalgamation of stolen power and corrupted potential. Solomon's wisdom showed him 2 paths again. Kill Shigaraki here, end All for One's plan permanently, save potentially thousands of lives. Or capture him, try to rehabilitate him, give him a chance at redemption he probably didn't deserve. Izuku chose mercy. Again. He pressure-pointed Shigaraki into unconsciousness and handed him over to the containment team. The heroes secured him in a specialized transport, ready to take him to Tartarus maximum security prison. You had him, Mirko said to Izuku. You could have ended it. I know. Then why didn't you? Izuku powered down, suddenly looking very tired. Because the moment I start executing people based on my judgment alone is the moment I stop being a hero. I become something else, something I don't want to be. Even if it costs lives, even then. Izuku's eyes were heavy with the weight of his choice. I have to believe there's another way, that we can be better than our worst instincts. The battle ended with a victory. Shigaraki captured, The PLF leadership arrested, their organization shattered, but it didn't feel like triumph. 3 heroes had died, thousands of civilians were displaced, and somehow, Izuku knew this wasn't over. That knowledge proved correct 2 weeks later. Shigaraki was being transported to Tartarus under maximum security, multiple heroes escorting, suppression fields active, every precaution taken. It should have been impossible to intercept, but All for One had 2 centuries of planning. He'd prepared for this exact scenario. The transport was hit by a coordinated assault. Villains with portal quirks, Nomu as shock troops, and leading them, wearing a new respirator mask, his body more machine than flesh. All for One himself, no longer hiding in shadows. The battle was chaos. Heroes fought desperately to maintain control. But All for One had planned perfectly, accounted for every variable, created optimal conditions. He reached Shigaraki's containment pod, touched it with a quirk that melted the locks, and looked down at his chosen vessel. Time to complete your transformation, Tomura. Time to become one. Izuku arrived 30 seconds later, having felt the disturbance through Solomon's wisdom, but 30 seconds was all for One needed. The villain's hand touched Shigaraki's face. His quirk activated, not to steal, but to transfer. His consciousness, his memories, his very essence flowed into Shigaraki's body, merging 2 beings into one. Shigaraki's eyes snapped open. When he stood, it was with All for One's bearing, All for One's confidence, All for One's evil. Perfect, the merged being said with Shigaraki's voice, but All for One's inflection. The transfer is complete. I am reborn. No, Izuku breathed in horror. All for One, Shigaraki turned to him, and when he smiled, it was a predator's grin. Hello again, champion. Thank you for not killing me at Kamino. Thank you for not killing my vessel in the war. Your mercy has given me exactly what I needed. Rage erupted from Izuku like a physical force. Golden lightning scorched the sky. His aura exploded outward with such intensity that nearby vehicles were pushed back by the pressure. You manipulated everything. Izuku's voice shook with fury. You wanted to be captured. You wanted me to hesitate. You counted on my mercy. Of course, you're predictable, champion. You have all that power, but you're still just a child playing hero. You think mercy is strength. I know it's weakness. All for One, Shigaraki flexed his new body's muscles. And now I have centuries of experience in a prime physical form with dozens of quirks and All for One's full power. I am perfect. You're an abomination. Perhaps, but I'm an abomination you created through your choices. Every time you held back, every time you showed mercy, you built toward this moment. All for One, Shigaraki laughed. I would thank you, but we both know what comes next. Portals opened around him. Nomu emerged by the dozens, high-ends, all of them created specifically to match Izuku's known capabilities. I can't beat you alone, champion. I know that now. You're too strong, too fast, too durable, but I don't need to beat you alone. All for One, Shigaraki gestured to the Nomu. I just need to keep you busy while I reshape society in my image. Every second you spend fighting these, I'm conquering. Every moment you hesitate, people die. Every time you show mercy, I grow stronger. He vanished through a portal, leaving Izuku surrounded by high-end Nomu and the consequences of his choices. Izuku stood there for a moment, lightning crackling, divine power radiating. Then he made a decision. No more hesitation, no more mercy for those who would exploit it, no more allowing evil to persist because he was afraid of what stopping it would make him. Shazam! He spoke the word with such force that thunder rolled across the continent. His power surged to levels he'd never accessed before, tapping into deeper wells of the 6 Elders' might. Then he moved. The Nomu didn't stand a chance. Izuku tore through them like a hurricane through paper, divine lightning atomizing, divine strength pulverizing, divine speed making him impossible to track or counter. Each high-end that had taken multiple top heroes to defeat fell in seconds. When the last Nomu dissolved into ash, Izuku shot into the sky and spoke 3 words. Solomon, find him. Divine wisdom activated at full power, processing information from across the entire planet. Satellite data, cellular communications, seismic readings, atmospheric disturbances, everything fed into calculations that showed Izuku exactly where All for One Shigaraki had gone and what he was doing. The villain had gone to ground in an underground facility beneath Tokyo, surrounded by technology that could broadcast his message worldwide. He was preparing to announce his return, to break society's faith in heroes, to plunge the world into chaos. Izuku arrived like a meteor, crashing through hundreds of meters of earth and steel and defensive systems in a single dive. He emerged in the broadcast chamber as All for One Shigaraki was preparing to address the world. "No speech," Izuku said coldly. "No monologue, no more chances." All for One Shigaraki turned, and for the first time, Izuku saw something like genuine concern in those eyes. "You're different," the villain said. "What happened to the merciful champion?" He learned that some evils can't be redeemed, some threats can't be captured, some monsters need to be put down permanently. Izuku's entire form blazed with golden light. "You wanted me to stop holding back? Congratulations, you got your wish." The fight that followed was apocalyptic. All for One Shigaraki threw everything at Izuku. Every quirk, every technique, every dirty trick learned over 2 centuries of villainy. The underground facility shattered from the forces involved, but Izuku was beyond holding back now. He used the full might of the 6 elders in perfect synchronization. Solomon's wisdom predicted every attack before it came. Hercules' strength turned every blow into potential annihilation. Atlas's stamina made exhaustion impossible. Zeus's power channeled lightning that bypassed all defenses. Achilles' courage made fear meaningless. Mercury's speed made him faster than thought itself. All for one. Shigaraki couldn't keep up. For all his stolen quirks, all his experience, all his preparation, he was still mortal, still limited by human perception and reaction time. Izuku was divine. A punch shattered All for One Shigaraki's ribs despite regeneration quirks. A lightning bolt burned through super durability. A speed blitz left the villain unable to even perceive the attacks before they landed. "This is impossible." All for One Shigaraki wheezed, blood streaming from multiple wounds. "I calculated for everything." "You calculated for the champion who hesitated, who showed mercy, who was afraid of his own power." Izuku grabbed All for One Shigaraki by the throat and lifted him like a puppet. "That champion died when you killed those heroes, when you manipulated my mercy into a weapon, when you proved that some people can't be saved, only stopped. Wait, we can negotiate. I can give you information. No more deals. No more chances. No more mercy." Izuku's free hand ignited with divine lightning, Zeus's power channeled at full capacity. The electricity didn't just burn, it erased, unmade, destroyed at a fundamental level. "You wanted to see what I could do without holding back," Izuku said quietly. "Here's your answer." All for one, Shigaraki's eyes widened in true fear for the first time in 2 centuries. "No. Wait, I'll surrender." Too late. The lightning struck point blank, channeled directly into All for One Shigaraki's core. The villain screamed, but the sound was cut short as divine power tore through his merged being. Every stolen quirk, every copied ability, every fragment of All for One's essence, all of it burned away under Zeus's judgment. The physical body followed, cells breaking down, molecules dispersing, existence itself rejecting this abomination. In 3 seconds, it was over. All for One Shigaraki ceased to exist. No body. No traces. Just empty air where the world's greatest villain had stood. Izuku remained in the shattered facility, breathing hard, not from exhaustion but from the weight of what he'd done. He'd killed. He'd used his divine power not to save or protect, but to execute. He'd crossed a line he'd sworn never to cross. "Are you satisfied?" The wizard's voice spoke in his mind. "No," Izuku said honestly, "but I'm certain it was necessary." "Do you regret your choice?" Izuku looked at his hands that had just ended a life, hands that stilted with residual lightning, hands chosen to defend Earth. "I regret that it had to happen, but I don't regret doing it." He would have kept killing, kept corrupting, kept spreading evil until someone stopped him permanently, and I'm the only one strong enough to do it. "Then you have learned the hardest lesson of power," the wizard said. "That sometimes defending the innocent requires judgment, not just intervention. That mercy without wisdom enables evil. That being chosen means accepting choices others cannot make. Does this make me a murderer? It makes you a champion who faced an impossible choice and made the decision you believed was right. History will judge whether you were correct. Your own conscience will judge whether you were righteous. But the world is safer tonight because All for One is gone." Izuku powered down and sat amid the rubble, processing everything. He'd won. The greatest villain in history was defeated permanently. But victory tasted like ashes. Above ground, heroes arrived to find the underground facility destroyed, and Izuku sitting in the center, covered in dust and blood that wasn't his own. Endeavor approached cautiously. "Midoriya, what happened?" "All for One is dead," Izuku said quietly. "He merged with Shigaraki, tried to take over the world. I stopped him." "Stopped or killed?" "Both. Same thing this time." Endeavor studied him for a long moment. "Was there another way?" "I don't know. Maybe, but I'm not sure I could have lived with myself if I'd tried another way and it failed." Izuku looked up at Endeavor. "He manipulated every choice I made, used my mercy against me, killed people because he knew I'd hesitate. I couldn't let that continue. No one's going to judge you for this, kid. All for One was a monster." "I'll judge myself," Izuku said. "That's enough." The aftermath was complex. The Hero Public Safety Commission wanted to study what remained of the facility, hoping to find intelligence on All for One's organization. The media exploded with speculation about what happened. Some called Izuku a hero who did what was necessary. Others questioned if giving one person the power to execute without trial was wise. Izuku didn't engage with any of it. He returned to UA, to his normal life, trying to find balance again. He visited Eri first thing, keeping his promise. She took one look at him and hugged him tight. "You're sad," she said. "I had to do something hard, something I wish I hadn't needed to do. But you kept your promise, you came back." "I did. Then you're still my hero." Those words meant more than any media praise or official commendation. His classmates welcomed him back without judgment. They'd all seen the news, understood what happened, knew that sometimes heroes faced impossible choices. Bakugo found him on the roof that night, same spot as before. "You did what needed doing," Bakugo said without preamble. "Did I? Or did I just take the easy way out?" "Killing All for One wasn't easy. Don't bullshit yourself. It was the hard choice, the one you'll carry forever." Bakugo sat beside him. "But it was the right one. He would have kept coming back, kept killing, kept destroying. You ended that. By becoming an executioner. By being what the world needed you to be. There's a difference." They sat in silence, watching the stars. "Do you think I'm still a hero?" Izuku asked. "Does it matter what I think?" "Yes," Bakugo snorted. "Then yeah, you're still a hero. Maybe more than before, because now you understand what power really means. Not just saving people, protecting them permanently from threats they can't handle themselves. Even if it means killing, even then. You think All Might never made that choice? You think every hero with real power hasn't faced that decision?" Bakugo's expression was serious. "The difference is you actually struggled with it. You didn't kill because you wanted to or because it was convenient. You killed because you saw no other way to protect everyone. That's what makes it heroic instead of villainous." Izuku wasn't sure he believed that, but he appreciated Bakugo saying it. Life moved forward. The remnants of All for One's organization scattered without their leader. Crime rates actually decreased. Villains were terrified of the champion of magic who'd proven he would kill if necessary. That reputation bothered Izuku more than he'd admit. He didn't want to be feared. He wanted to inspire hope. But maybe, Solomon's wisdom whispered, inspiring hope for the innocent meant inspiring fear in the wicked. Months passed. Izuku and his classmates entered their third year at UA. The war was over. Peace had been achieved through decisive action. Society was rebuilding, heroes were recovering, the world was safer, but Izuku struggled with his choices. He'd killed All for One to protect people, yes. But what if there had been another way? What if he'd been smarter, faster, more creative? The guilt ate at him until he couldn't take it anymore. He went dark, not villainous, just gone. He left UA in the middle of the night, leaving only a note explaining that he needed to work alone for a while. That he needed to understand what being the champion of magic truly meant. He traveled the world, hunting down the remnants of All for One's organization. Every villain connected to the dead mastermind, every splinter group trying to continue his work, every person who'd benefited from his evil, Izuku found them all. Solomon's wisdom made investigation trivial. Mercury's speed made pursuit impossible to escape. Zeus's power made resistance meaningless. He didn't kill them. That choice at the underground facility had been specific to All for One, to a threat so enormous it couldn't be contained. These villains were dangerous but mortal, capable of being stopped without execution. So Izuku stopped them. He worked alone, coordinating with international heroes when necessary, but mostly operating as a solo agent of justice. He saved thousands, stopped dozens of plots, prevented catastrophes on 3 continents. The media called it the Dark Hero period, though Izuku rejected the name. He wasn't dark, he was focused, determined, doing what needed to be done without the constraints of committee approvals and bureaucratic delays. But he was also lonely. Fighting alone meant no backup when things got difficult, no friends to talk to after hard missions, no one to remind him why he'd become a hero in the first place. He lasted 3 months before his classmates tracked him down. They found him in New York City, having just stopped a villain plot to destroy the Brooklyn Bridge. Izuku was sitting on the cables, transformed, watching the sunset. "You're a real pain to track down." Bakugo's voice came from below. Izuku looked down to find his entire class standing on the bridge deck. Somehow they'd convinced international heroes to let them come. Somehow they'd followed his trail halfway across the world. "You shouldn't be here," Izuku said. "It's not safe." "Shut up," Bakugo interrupted. "You don't get to pull the MHA. It's too dangerous card when you're the most dangerous thing on the planet. I'm trying to protect you." "We don't need protection from you. We need you with us," Mina shouted up. "You're our friend, Midoriya. You don't get to just disappear." "I killed someone," Izuku's voice broke slightly. "I executed all for one. How can I be your friend when I'm capable of that?" Todoroki stepped forward. "My father burned a child's face to prove a point about power. I'm still his son. You killed the world's greatest villain to protect everyone. You're still our friend. See the difference? I don't want you to be afraid of me." "We're not afraid of you. We're worried about you," Kirishima called up. "You're up there dealing with this alone when you have friends who want to help." "How can you help? You can't fight the threats I face." "No, but we can remind you why you fight them," Uraraka said gently. "We can keep you human when all that divine power makes you forget what mortality means. We can be the reason you come home instead of just flying off forever." Izuku looked at them, his friends, his classmates, the people who'd stood by him through everything. They'd crossed the world to find him. They weren't afraid, they weren't judging, they were just there. He powered down and floated to the bridge deck, landing among them. "I don't know how to balance this," he admitted. "Being the champion means I can solve almost any problem alone, but being a hero means working with others, being part of something bigger. I don't know how to be both." "Then let us help you figure it out," Momo said, "together, like we've always done." "I killed someone." "We know," Ida interrupted. "We all know, and we all understand why. You're not a monster, Midoriya. You're someone with immense power trying to use it responsibly. That you struggle with these decisions proves you're still thinking like a hero." Bakugo punched his shoulder lightly. "Also, you're an idiot if you think working alone makes you stronger. All Might tried that. Look how that turned out. He needed people. You need people. Even godlike champions need friends to keep them grounded." Izuku felt tears building. "What if I hurt one of you? What if I lose control?" "Then we'll deal with it together," Todoroki said simply. "But we trust you not to. We've seen you pull your punches, modulate your power, show restraint even when it would be easier to just unleash everything. You won't hurt us because you're too careful to let that happen." The tears fell then. Izuku stood among his friends, these brave, stubborn, wonderful people who refused to let him isolate himself, and he cried. They hugged him, every one of them, forming a circle of support around someone who could lift mountains but still needed comfort. "Okay," Izuku said through his tears. "Okay, I'll come back, but I need help learning how to do this right, how to be the champion without losing myself." "Then let's figure it out together," Mina said with her usual cheerfulness. "Team effort. That's what heroes do." They returned to Japan as a group, and somehow that made all the difference. Back at UA, Izuku found a new balance. He continued his hero work, now officially licensed and working with other pros instead of alone. When threats arose that needed his full power, he used it without hesitation. But he also learned to step back for smaller problems, to let other heroes handle situations they could manage, to save his intervention for when it truly mattered. He became what the wizard had envisioned, Earth's mightiest mortal, but still mortal. Still human. Still connected to the people he protected. Eri continued to heal, growing stronger and more confident under the care of UA's staff and with Izuku's regular visits. Her quirk, once a source of trauma, became something she could begin to understand and eventually control with proper training. The school year continued. Graduation approached for the third years. The world had changed. Heroes were more respected, villains more cautious, society more stable than it had been in decades. But new threats always emerge. It started with reports from America. A hero named Star and Stripe, the Western world's strongest hero, possibly second only to Izuku globally, had encountered something unusual. A Nomu. But not just any Nomu, a perfect Nomu, one that seemed to have All for One's quirk despite All for One being dead. Izuku felt his blood run cold when he heard the news. "It's not possible," he said to Aizawa. "I destroyed All for One completely. There was nothing left to resurrect, no consciousness to transfer." "Then how do you explain this Nomu having his quirk?" Aizawa asked. Solomon's wisdom processed the information and came to a horrifying conclusion. A backup. What? All for One had 2 centuries to plan. He wouldn't rely on a single vessel. He must have created a backup consciousness somewhere, a copy of his memories and personality that could activate if his main body died. Izuku's hands clenched into fists. "I destroyed his body, but not his legacy. Part of him survived in this Nomu. Can Star and Stripe handle it? I don't know, but I'm going to make sure." Izuku transformed and shot into the sky, crossing the Pacific Ocean at speeds that made nuclear missiles look slow. He reached American airspace in minutes, his divine senses searching for the battle. He found it over the ocean, Star and Stripe fighting desperately against a Nomu that moved with All for One's cunning and had his quirk-stealing ability. She was using her own powerful quirk, New Order, which let her set rules on reality itself. But the Nomu was adapting, learning, evolving. Izuku arrived like a meteor, crashing between Star and the Nomu with enough force to displace the ocean beneath them. "Champion of Magic," the Nomu spoke with All for One's voice, confirming Izuku's worst fears. "Right on schedule. This body was created specifically as insurance against you." "Then it's terrible insurance," Izuku said coldly. "I've gotten stronger since I killed you, and I'm not hesitating this time." He attacked with everything, no holding back, no mercy, no hesitation. The Nomu was strong, stronger than the high ends, possibly stronger than Shigaraki had been. It had All for One's tactical genius and a body designed to counter Izuku's known capabilities. But Izuku had grown too. He'd mastered the synchronization of the Six Elders' powers. He'd learned to access deeper wells of divine might. And most importantly, he'd learned that some threats required absolute force. The battle raged across the sky and ocean. Star and Stripe tried to assist, but the speeds involved made it impossible for her to keep up. This was a fight between a mortal copy of an ancient evil and a divine champion. There was no room for conventional heroes. Izuku used combinations he'd never attempted before. Solomon's wisdom predicted the Nomu's moves, then Mercury's speed let him counter before those moves completed. Hercules' strength shattered enhanced bones, while Zeus's power burned through regeneration. The Nomu fought back with stolen quirks and All for One's experience, but it was a losing battle. This was a copy fighting the original champion, a backup plan facing someone who'd grown beyond the parameters of that plan. "You can't win," Izuku said as his fist cracked through the Nomu's defenses again. "All for One couldn't beat me at full power in his prime vessel. This copy in a weaker body has no chance." "Perhaps not," the Nomu admitted. "But I can take you with me." It activated a self-destruct quirk, one designed to explode with enough force to destroy everything for miles around, including Star and Stripe, who was still in range. Izuku made his choice in microseconds. He grabbed the Nomu and shot straight up, carrying it away from the ocean surface, away from Star and Stripe, into the upper atmosphere where the explosion couldn't hurt anyone. At 80,000 feet, the Nomu detonated. The blast was visible from the ground, a second sun blooming in the sky. The shockwave rolled across the atmosphere, dispersing clouds for hundreds of miles. When the light faded, Izuku remained floating in the thin air, completely unharmed. Achilles' invulnerability had protected him from the explosion. The Nomu was gone, atomized by its own self-destruct. All for One's backup plan had failed. Izuku descended to where Star and Stripe hovered using her quirk, her expression one of shock and awe. "That was," she started. Necessary, Izuku finished. I'm sorry I couldn't save you the trouble. All for One was my responsibility. You killed him once and he came back. How do we make sure he stays dead? We don't, Izuku said grimly. Someone like All for One, with 2 centuries of planning, probably has multiple contingencies. I'll hunt down every one. However long it takes, wherever they hide, I'll end all of them. That's a big burden to carry alone. I'm not alone. Just say not anymore. Izuku smiled slightly. I have friends who won't let me be. He returned to Japan and reported what happened. The Hero Commission was concerned. If All for One had one backup, he might have more. They wanted to mobilize international hero teams to search for others, but Izuku had a better idea. Solomon, show me every backup plan All for One created. Every hidden Nomu, every consciousness copy, every contingency in case of his death. Divine Wisdom activated, processing information from across the entire world. Satellite data, digital records, financial transactions, witness reports, everything fed into calculations that showed Izuku the complete map of All for One's posthumous plans. There were 3 more backup Nomu scattered globally. 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, 1 in Asia. Each designed to activate if the others were destroyed, ensuring All for One's consciousness would survive. Izuku hunted them all down over the course of a week. He destroyed them systematically, efficiently, without mercy. Each one tried to fight, tried to bargain, tried to escape. None succeeded. By the time he finished, every trace of All for One's consciousness was erased from the world. No more backups, no more contingencies, no more ancient evil waiting in the shadows. For the first time in 2 centuries, the world was truly free of All for One. The relief was immense. Heroes worldwide celebrated. Villains who'd worked for All for One's organization either reformed or were easily captured without their leadership. Society began to heal in ways that wouldn't have been possible while the symbol of evil lived. Izuku returned to UA one final time as a student. Graduation was approaching, and with it, the transition from student hero to professional. The ceremony was bittersweet. Izuku stood among his classmates, Bakugo, Todoroki, Ida, Uraraka, Momo, everyone who'd been with him through 3 years of challenges and growth, and realized this chapter was ending. You ready for the real world? Bakugo asked while they waited for their names to be called. I've been fighting in the real world for years, Izuku replied. That's not what I meant. I mean, being a pro, having a ranking, dealing with media and popularity contests and all that garbage. Honestly, no. I'd rather just help people without all the bureaucracy. Too bad. You're the champion of magic. You don't get to be anonymous. Principal Nezu called Izuku's name. He walked across the stage to receive his diploma, and the applause that followed was deafening. Students, teachers, pro heroes in attendance, everyone recognized what he'd become, what he'd achieved, what he represented, Earth's mightiest mortal. The champion of magic. The hero who'd permanently ended the greatest villain in history. After the ceremony, All Might pulled Izuku aside. I wanted to tell you something, the former symbol of peace said. When I chose to become a hero, I did it to inspire people, to make them feel safe, to show them that justice would prevail. You succeeded, Izuku said. You were the symbol of peace for decades. But I was always just a man with a powerful quirk. I had limits, weaknesses, mortality. All Might smiled his trademark smile. You're different. You have power that transcends normal limits. You're not just a symbol. You're proof that something greater exists, that there are forces in the universe that protect the innocent. I don't want to be worshipped. I'm not saying you should be, but accept that you're more than just another hero. You're the champion. You're the one who stands between humanity and threats they can't comprehend. That's not arrogance. That's acknowledgement of your role. Izuku was quiet for a moment. What if I fail? What if there's a threat I can't stop? Then you'll do what every hero does. You'll try anyway. You'll fight anyway. You'll give everything anyway. All Might put a hand on his shoulder. But I don't think you'll fail, young Midoriya, because you were chosen by powers older than nations, and they don't make mistakes. Time moved forward. Izuku established himself as a professional hero operating out of Tokyo. He didn't join an agency. He worked independently, responding to threats as they arose, coordinating with other heroes when needed, but not constrained by organizational hierarchies. His ranking shot to number 1 within months, not because he sought popularity or media attention, but because his effectiveness was undeniable. When the champion of magic responded to a crisis, the crisis ended. Period. Bakugo took number 2, his explosive power and tactical genius making him an incredible hero in his own right. Todoroki was number 3, having fully embraced both sides of his power. The rest of Class 1A scattered across the rankings, each finding their niche, each becoming excellent heroes. But they stayed connected, meeting regularly, supporting each other, maintaining the bonds they'd formed at UA. Eri grew up under Izuku's protection and guidance. By age 12, she'd mastered her quirk with his help, learning to control the rewind power that had once been used to hurt her. She declared she wanted to be a hero too, and Izuku couldn't have been prouder. "Just promise me something," he said when she told him. "Promise you'll be a better hero than I am." "How? You're the strongest hero ever." "Being the strongest isn't the same as being the best. I want you to be the hero who never has to make the hard choices I did, who can save everyone without compromise, who can inspire hope without inspiring fear." "I promise I'll try," Eri said. "But I'll never be stronger than you." "You don't need to be stronger. You just need to be better, kinder, more patient, more willing to see the good in people." Izuku hugged her gently. "I'm the champion of magic because I was chosen by ancient powers. You'll be a champion because you choose to be. That's more impressive." Years passed. Society evolved. The hero system improved, became more efficient, more supportive, more focused on actual heroism rather than popularity contests. Crime rates dropped to historic lows. Villain organizations struggled to recruit when everyone knew the champion of magic could find them, stop them, end them if necessary. But Izuku never killed again after All for One's backups. He'd learned that execution was a last resort, not a first option. He'd proven he could end any threat permanently. Now he worked to prove he could stop threats without ending lives. It was harder. It required more creativity, more restraint, more wisdom. But it was the right path. Solomon's gift wasn't just showing him how to win. It was showing him how to win while staying true to his principles. On the 10th anniversary of receiving the wizard's power, Izuku stood on a rooftop overlooking Tokyo, transformed, golden lightning crackling around him. The city sprawled below, peaceful and safe. Lights twinkled in windows. People went about their lives without fear. Heroes patrolled, yes, but more as a precaution than a necessity. This was what the wizard had wanted, what all the elders had chosen him for. A world protected by someone powerful enough to defend it, wise enough not to rule it, mortal enough to remember why it mattered. "You've done well, Izuku Midoriya." The wizard's voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere, same as always. "I wasn't sure I would," Izuku admitted. "I made so many mistakes, killed when I should have found another way, hesitated when I should have acted." You made human mistakes. That's what makes you a mortal champion rather than a divine tyrant. The gods make no errors because they lack the humility to recognize them. You grow from yours. Is this what you envisioned when you chose me? This is better. I chose you because you had a pure heart despite living in a world that rewarded power. You've proven that power doesn't have to corrupt. That strength can serve rather than dominate. What happens now? Now you continue. You protect. You inspire. You show the world what a true champion looks like, not through perfection, but through persistence. Through choosing to be better even when being worse would be easier. Will you always be there? Watching? Always. You are my champion, Izuku. My final gift to a world I loved. I will watch over you until the stars burn out. Izuku smiled. Thank you for choosing me, for believing in me, for giving me the power to protect everyone I care about. Thank you for proving me right. The presence faded, leaving Izuku alone on the rooftop. But he didn't feel alone. He felt connected to the wizard, to the elders, to every person in the city below who slept safely because he stood watch. He was the champion of magic, Earth's mightiest mortal, the defender chosen by powers beyond comprehension. But more than that, he was Izuku Midoriya. A kid who'd once been told he could never be a hero, who'd been given an impossible gift, who'd learned to use that gift wisely. And as he stood there, lightning crackling around him, watching over the city he'd sworn to protect, Izuku understood something fundamental. Being powerful didn't make you a hero. Being chosen didn't make you worthy. Being able to end any threat didn't make you right. What made you a hero was choosing to use your power for others. What made you worthy was questioning whether you deserved the gifts you'd been given. What made you right was struggling with every hard decision instead of making them easily. He wasn't perfect. He'd never be perfect. He'd made mistakes and would make more, but he would keep trying, keep fighting, keep protecting, because that's what heroes do. Thunder rolled across the Tokyo skyline as Izuku spoke the word that had changed his life. Shazam! Golden lightning split the sky, and the champion of magic rose into the air, ready for whatever came next. Ready to face any threat, protect any innocent, stop any evil, not because he had to, not because powers older than nations commanded it, but because a quirkless kid named Izuku Midoriya had dreamed of being a hero. And when given the power to make that dream real, he'd chosen to be worthy of it. The city lights sparkled below, the stars shone above, and between them, the champion of magic stood watch, Earth's mightiest mortal, the symbol of magic, the defender who would never stop trying to save everyone, because some promises are worth keeping forever and some dreams are worth fighting for eternally. And Izuku Midoriya had promised himself long ago in a different life that he would be a hero, the greatest hero. Not because he was the strongest, though he was. Not because he was the fastest, though he was. Not because he was the most powerful, though he was, but because he was the one who would never give up, never stop caring, never lose sight of what mattered. That's what the wizard had seen. That's what the elders had chosen. That's what made him worthy. Not the power he wielded, but the heart that refused to let that power corrupt him. As Izuku flew into the night, lightning trailing behind him like a cape of divine energy, he thought of everyone who'd helped him reach this point. His mother, who'd supported him even when his dream seemed impossible. All Might, who'd shown him what a symbol could be. His classmates, who'd become friends, who'd kept him grounded when godlike power threatened to make him forget his humanity. Bakugo, who'd pushed him to embrace his strength instead of apologizing for it. Eri, who'd reminded him why strength mattered, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And the wizard, who'd given a quirkless kid the power to change the world. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges and triumphs, struggles and victories. There would be new villains, new threats, new crises that required his intervention. But Izuku was ready, because he wasn't just the champion of magic anymore. He was Izuku Midoriya, the kid who never gave up. And together, they would protect the world forever. The end.
A massive thank you to the legends supporting the channel. Starting us off, a huge shout out to our pro heroes, Fire05, Javon McQuire. Next up, thank you to the absolute pillars of the community, our symbol of peace tier. Neostar Productions, Azael Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Agroxa298, Sunawind 631, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddy_Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Chris Talley, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SKE8er, Akano Himejima, Corey Tokars, Jan, X0 Hope 3656, Devin Black, Crow, Isprid, Roberto Ramos Di Cristina, Dasher Games, Joe Bros, Ray Von Crimson River, Dante Alistair, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Howie60, Ignacio, and Albert. And finally, massive love to the heavy hitters holding it all down, the hope of the universe. Sean Brooks, Kayshawn, Debbie Rowe, GVZLN21, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, James, Quan Yen Thompson, Quan, I'm Calver, and Colsey. You guys are the best. The champion of magic has spoken. Izuku Midoriya proved that true power isn't stolen, it's earned through sacrifice.
If you want more stories where underdogs become legends, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. Drop a comment telling us your favorite moment. More epic fan fiction coming soon. Plus Ultra.